Tonight, you'll discover ancient Buddhist wisdom that has transformed millions of restless nights into the deepest, most peaceful sleep imaginable. I'm going to share with you life-changing tales from the Buddha's teachings, stories that contain secrets monks have used for over 2,000 years to quiet the mind, release worry, and find profound inner peace. Each story holds a key that unlocks your natural ability to let go of everything weighing on your heart. And here's what makes this different from anything else you've tried. These teachings work even if you've struggled with sleep for years. Even if your mind races uncontrollably at night. Even if anxiety keeps you awake hour after hour. The Buddha once said, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." In the next 3 hours, you'll discover exactly how to transform your thoughts from sources of stress into pathways to peace. As we journey through tales of wise monks, unexpected lessons, and timeless truths, something remarkable will begin to happen. The tension you've been carrying will start to dissolve. The thoughts that have been keeping you awake will gradually quiet. Your body will become heavy and relaxed, and you'll find yourself naturally drifting into the kind of rest you've been longing for. So right now, settle into your most comfortable position. Adjust your pillow one last time. Let your body sink completely into the bed beneath you. Take one slow, deep breath with me now. Hold it gently, and as you exhale, know that you've just begun a journey that will carry you into the most restorative sleep you've experienced in a very long time. Let's begin with our first story. Our first tale comes from a remote monastery high in the mountains, where a young monk named Satori was struggling with something that many of us face: the inability to stop thinking, to stop worrying, to simply be at peace. This is the story of the monk who couldn't sleep. Satori had dedicated his entire life to spiritual practice. He rose before dawn, meditated for hours, studied the ancient texts, served his fellow monks with devotion, and followed every teaching with perfect discipline. Yet night after night, as the monastery fell silent and the other monks drifted peacefully into sleep, Satori lay awake in his small room, his mind churning with thoughts. He would think about whether he was practicing correctly, whether he truly understood the teachings, whether he would ever achieve enlightenment. He worried about mistakes he had made during the day, conversations he might have handled better, moments when his concentration had wavered. The more he tried to stop thinking, the more thoughts seemed to multiply in his mind. He attempted every technique he knew. He counted his breaths, repeated mantras, visualized peaceful scenes, yet nothing worked. His frustration grew with each sleepless night, and the lack of rest began affecting his practice. He became irritable. His concentration suffered during meditation, and he felt increasingly discouraged. One evening, after another day of struggling through his duties, exhausted and distracted, Satori approached the monastery's eldest teacher, Master Lin. Lin was known for his profound wisdom and his gentle, patient way of guiding students. Satori bowed deeply and said, "Master, I'm failing in my practice. Every night I lie awake, unable to stop my mind from racing. I've tried everything I know, but the thoughts just keep coming. What am I doing wrong? How can I find peace?" Master Lin looked at the young monk with kind eyes and smiled softly. He gestured for Satori to sit beside him on the wooden bench outside the meditation hall. For a long moment, Lin said nothing, simply gazing at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Finally, he spoke. "Satori, tell me, when you try to stop your thoughts, what happens?" Satori replied immediately, "They become stronger, Master. The harder I push them away, the more persistent they become. It's like fighting against a strong current." Lin nodded. "And when you become frustrated with yourself for thinking, how does that affect your mind?" "It makes everything worse," Satori admitted. "The frustration creates even more thoughts. I start thinking about my thinking, worrying about my worrying." The old master chuckled gently. "Satori, you are making a common mistake that many seekers make. You are treating your mind as an enemy to be conquered, rather than understanding its true nature. Tell me, when the wind blows through the monastery, do you try to stop it?" "No, Master," Satori answered, confused by the question. "The wind comes and goes naturally. And when clouds pass across the moon, do you feel you must push them away?" "Of course not. They move on their own. Master Lin turned to look directly at Satori. Then, why do you think thoughts should be any different? Thoughts arise in the mind just as naturally as wind blows and clouds drift. They come uninvited, and they leave uninvited. The problem is not that you have thoughts. The problem is that you are fighting against their natural arising and passing. He continued, when you lie awake at night trying to stop thinking, you are like a man standing in a river trying to stop the water from flowing. The more effort you apply, the more exhausted you become, and the water flows regardless. But if you simply observe the water without trying to change it, you can remain at peace while the river flows past you. Satori felt a small shift in his understanding, but he was still uncertain. Master, are you saying I should just let my mind think whatever it wants? That I shouldn't practice mindfulness or concentration? No, Lin said patiently. I'm saying there is a difference between awareness and control, between observing and fighting. Right now, you are attempting to control your thoughts through force. This creates tension and resistance. What I'm suggesting is that you practice awareness without attachment, observation without judgment. When a thought arises, simply notice it. Say to yourself silently, a thought has arisen. When it passes, notice that too. A thought has passed. Don't label thoughts as good or bad, helpful or unhelpful. Don't create stories about what they mean about you. Just see them clearly as temporary mental events, like clouds passing through the vast sky of your awareness. Satori listened intently, beginning to feel something open inside him. Lin stood and placed his hand gently on the young monk's shoulder. Tonight, when you lie down to sleep, don't try to stop thinking. Instead, watch your thoughts with curiosity and kindness, as if you were watching leaves floating down a stream. Notice how each thought arises from nothing, exists for a moment, and then dissolves back into nothing. See how you are not your thoughts, but the awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent. Your thoughts are conditioned things. They will pass on their own if you stop grasping at them or pushing them away. That night, Satori returned to his room with a different intention. When he lay down and the familiar cascade of thoughts began, he didn't fight them. Instead, he watched. A thought about tomorrow's duties arose. He noticed it. A thought about tomorrow. The thought lingered for a moment, then faded. Another thought appeared, a memory from his childhood. A memory has arisen. It too passed. A worry about his practice surfaced. A worry. Gone. Gradually, Satori noticed something extraordinary. When he stopped fighting his thoughts, they began to lose their power over him. What had seemed like overwhelming torrents of mental activity revealed itself to be just a natural process, thoughts arising and passing in the spacious awareness that he actually was. He found himself becoming interested in observing this process, curious about how thoughts appeared from nowhere and returned to nowhere. And in that gentle, non-resistant awareness, his body began to relax. His breathing deepened naturally. The space between thoughts grew longer. Before he realized it was happening, Satori drifted into the peaceful sleep that had eluded him for so long. He slept deeply and dreamlessly, and when he woke before dawn, he felt truly rested for the first time in months. Over the following weeks, Satori continued to practice this teaching. Some nights, sleep came quickly. Other nights, thoughts were more active. But he no longer saw this as a problem. He had discovered that peace didn't depend on the absence of thoughts, but on his relationship with them. He could be at peace with thinking, just as he could be at peace with silence. Master Lin's wisdom had revealed a profound truth. We suffer not because we have thoughts, but because we fight against them, judge them, and identify with them. When we understand that thoughts are simply passing phenomena, no more substantial than clouds in the sky, we can find rest and peace regardless of mental activity. The Buddha taught, you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness behind them. This teaching is the foundation of liberation from the tyranny of the thinking mind. For those of us who struggle with racing thoughts at night, Satori's story offers essential wisdom. The act of trying to stop thinking creates a paradox. Effort to not think is itself a form of thinking. It's like trying to smooth out ripples on water by pressing down on the surface. Your intervention creates more disturbance. In Buddhist psychology, this is understood through the principle of non-striving, or wu-wei, effortless action. When we approach our mental activity with this quality of effortless awareness, simply observing without trying to change anything, we align with the natural rhythm of the mind rather than fighting against it. Consider what happens in your own experience when you notice a thought without judgment. The thought is seen clearly, but it doesn't hook you into a chain of associated thoughts. It's like watching a single bird fly across the sky. You notice it, it passes, and the sky remains vast and open. But when you judge a thought as bad or problematic, when you create a story about what it means about you, you're no longer simply observing. You've become entangled. One thought triggers another, which triggers another, and soon you're lost in a forest of mental activity, far from the open sky of awareness. The practice Master Lin taught Satori is foundational to Buddhist meditation. It's sometimes called noting or mental noting. By simply naming what arises, thought, worry, memory, planning, without adding judgment or trying to change anything, we maintain the position of awareness rather than becoming identified with our mental content. This practice reveals something profound about the nature of consciousness itself. You cannot be what you observe. If you can watch your thoughts, then you cannot be your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear, the space in which mental activity unfolds. This awareness is always present, always peaceful, always untouched by the content it contains, just as the sky is never disturbed by the clouds that pass through it. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, can you bring this same quality of gentle, non-resistant awareness to your own mental activity? Can you watch your thoughts with curiosity rather than judgment, with interest rather than frustration? Can you notice how thoughts arise by themselves, linger for a moment, and then dissolve by themselves? And in that noticing, can you recognize the spacious awareness that you truly are? The awareness that was present before this story began, that is present now, and that will remain present even as sleep carries you into the deep rest your body and mind need? Let your thoughts be as they are. They will quiet themselves when you stop fighting them. Our second story takes us to a small village at the edge of a great forest, where a farmer named Chen had just experienced what he believed was the worst disaster of his life. This is the story of the farmer's fortune. Chen had worked his entire life to build a small but prosperous farm. He grew rice in carefully tended paddies, raised chickens and pigs, and maintained a modest vegetable garden. But his greatest pride and his most valuable possession was his horse, a strong, beautiful stallion that helped him plow the fields, carry heavy loads, and travel to the market in the distant town. This horse represented years of savings and was essential to Chen's livelihood. One morning, Chen woke to find that the gate to the horse's enclosure had somehow come loose during the night. The horse was gone, escaped into the vast forest that bordered his farm. Chen searched frantically, calling for the horse, following tracks that eventually disappeared into the dense undergrowth. By evening, he had to accept that the horse was truly lost. His neighbors gathered around him, shaking their heads sympathetically. "What terrible luck," they said. "This is such a misfortune. How will you manage the farm without your horse? This is very, very bad." Chen, who had studied with Buddhist teachers in his youth, simply replied, "Maybe, maybe not. We'll see." The neighbors thought this was a strange response to such an obvious disaster, but they left Chen to his troubles. Days passed, and Chen worked his farm with only his own strength, struggling to do the work that the horse had made easy. Then, 1 week after the horse had disappeared, Chen woke to an amazing sight. His horse had returned, and with it were 3 wild horses, magnificent creatures that had followed the stallion out of the forest. Chen now had 4 horses instead of 1. The neighbors rushed over, amazed at this turn of fortune. "How wonderful!" they exclaimed. "You've gone from 1 horse to 4. What incredible luck! This is marvelous." Chen smiled and replied, "Maybe, maybe not. We'll see." Again, the neighbors found his response puzzling. How could he not see this was obviously good fortune? Several days later, Chen's only son, a strong young man who helped work the farm, decided to train one of the wild horses. The horse was spirited and untamed. As the son tried to break it, the horse bucked violently and threw him to the ground. The young man's leg broke in 2 places. The village doctor was called, and he set the bone, but it was clear the son would not be able to walk properly for many months. Once again, the neighbors gathered, their faces filled with concern. "Such bad luck," they said, shaking their heads. "Your son was your greatest help on the farm, and now he's injured. This is truly unfortunate. What terrible timing." Chen tended to his son's injury and quietly said, "Maybe, maybe not. We'll see." The neighbors walked away, some thinking Chen had become strange in his misfortune. A month later, the emperor's army came through the village. The empire was at war with a neighboring kingdom, and the army was conscripting every able-bodied young man to serve as soldiers. Throughout the village, sons were torn from their families to march off to a brutal war from which few would return. Mothers wept, fathers stood helpless, and the young men left with fear in their eyes. But when the army officers came to Chen's farm and saw his son with a badly broken leg, they passed him by. He was unfit for military service. After the army had left and the village fell into mourning for its lost sons, some neighbors came quietly to Chen. "Your son's injury saved his life," they said softly. "While our sons marched to probable death, yours remains safe at home." What seemed like misfortune was actually a blessing. Chen looked at them with gentle eyes and said, "Maybe, maybe not. We'll see." This story, one of the most famous Zen tales, contains layer upon layer of wisdom about the nature of judgment, the unpredictability of life, and the peace that comes from holding our interpretations lightly. The Buddha taught, "With our thoughts, we make the world." Chen's story reveals how our judgments about events as good or bad, fortunate or unfortunate, create much of our suffering and obscure the deeper truth that life unfolds in ways far more complex than our limited perspective can grasp. Consider how quickly we label our experiences. Something happens, and within seconds, sometimes within milliseconds, our mind has categorized it, judged it, and created a story about what it means for our future. We experience this automatic judging as truth, but it's actually just mental habit, a conditioned response that Buddhist psychology calls samskara, deeply ingrained patterns of reaction. When Chen's neighbors declared the horse's escape a disaster, they weren't simply observing a fact, they were creating an interpretation based on limited information and projecting that interpretation into an unknown future. The same event could lead to countless different outcomes depending on circumstances they couldn't see. Their certainty about the meaning of the event was an illusion. Yet how much energy we all invest in similar certainties. Think about your own life. How many times have you been absolutely sure that something was the worst thing that could happen, only to discover later that it led to unexpected benefits? How often have you judged something as wonderful, only to find it brought complications you hadn't foreseen? The mind's habit of rushing to judgment creates a constant emotional roller coaster. When we label something as good, we grasp at it, try to hold on to it, and fear its loss. When we label something as bad, we resist it, fight against it, and create stress and suffering. Yet the events themselves are often neutral, their meaning dependent on context, perspective, and unfolding circumstances we cannot predict. Chen's response, "Maybe, maybe not, we'll see," represents a profound spiritual wisdom found throughout Buddhist teaching. It's not passivity or indifference, it's what Buddhists call equanimity, a balanced, calm mind that can meet life's changes without being thrown into reactive extremes. The Buddhist teacher Ajahn Chah once taught, "If you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you will have complete peace." Chen has let go of the need to immediately judge and categorize his experiences, and in that letting go, he maintains his peace regardless of changing circumstances. This doesn't mean Chen doesn't have preferences or doesn't take appropriate action. When his horse escapes, he searches for it. When his son is injured, he cares for him. But he doesn't add the extra layer of suffering that comes from insisting that reality should be different than it is, or that he knows what any event ultimately means. In the Bhagavad Gita, which influenced much Buddhist thought. There's a teaching about performing action without attachment to results. This is the spirit of Chen's approach. He responds to what life brings, but he doesn't cling to outcomes or impose rigid interpretations on unfolding events. Western psychology has begun to recognize this wisdom in what's called cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt our thinking to changing circumstances rather than rigidly holding to fixed interpretations. Research shows that people with greater cognitive flexibility experience less anxiety and depression, better relationships, and greater resilience in facing life's challenges. The story also reveals something about the nature of time and causality. What appears in the present moment to be the final meaning of an event is actually just one moment in an ongoing chain of cause and effect that extends far beyond our vision. The horse's escape is not a complete event in itself. It's one link in a chain that includes the wild horses, the son's injury, and the military conscription, and likely continues into consequences not mentioned in the story. When we judge an event, we're freezing one frame of a moving picture and pretending we see the whole film. We're looking at one piece of an enormous puzzle and claiming to know what the complete image shows. Buddhist philosophy, particularly in the Madhyamaka school, teaches about interdependent origination, the understanding that all phenomena arise in dependence upon multiple causes and conditions. Nothing exists in isolation or has inherent, fixed meaning. Everything is connected to everything else in a vast web of relationship that our conceptual mind cannot fully grasp. Chen's refusal to make final judgments reflects this understanding. Tonight, as you reflect on your own life, can you identify where you're holding rigid judgments about your circumstances? Where are you absolutely certain that something is good or bad without acknowledging that you cannot see all the consequences that will unfold? Can you hold your interpretations more lightly, with the wisdom of maybe, maybe not, we'll see? This doesn't mean abandoning all discernment or becoming passive. It means distinguishing between appropriate response in the present moment and the extra suffering we create through rigid judgments about what events mean for our ultimate well-being. It means acknowledging the humility of not knowing, of recognizing that life is far more mysterious and complex than our categories of good and bad can capture. As you prepare for sleep tonight, can you let go of the need to figure everything out, to know whether the events of your day were ultimately good or bad? Can you rest in the spacious not knowing that Chen embodied, trusting that life will continue to unfold in ways you cannot predict or control? The Buddha taught, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. When we stop demanding that life conform to our judgments and preferences, when we meet what arises with equanimity rather than resistance, we discover a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances being a particular way. Let yourself rest in that peace now. Whatever happened today, whatever you're worried about tomorrow, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, we'll see. For now, simply rest. Our third story takes us inside the meditation hall of an ancient monastery, where a student named Kenji was receiving instruction from his teacher. This is the story of the second arrow. Kenji had been practicing meditation for several months, but he was becoming increasingly frustrated. No matter how hard he tried, how long he sat, or how carefully he followed the instructions, he couldn't seem to escape pain and discomfort. Some days his back would ache, other days his knees would hurt. Sometimes he would feel sad for no clear reason, or anxious, or restless. He had come to the monastery hoping to find a way to escape suffering, but instead, he seemed to be experiencing it more acutely than ever before. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult meditation session in which his mind had been restless and his body uncomfortable, Kenji approached his teacher, Master Tenzin, with frustration evident on his face. "Master," Kenji said, "I don't understand. I came here to learn how to end suffering, but I seem to suffer more than I did before. The meditation is supposed to bring peace, but I feel pain, discomfort, and mental anguish almost every time I sit. What am I doing wrong?" Master Tenzin looked at his student with compassionate eyes and gestured for him to sit down. "Kenji," the master said gently, "let me ask you a question. If someone shot you with an arrow, would that be painful?" "Of course, master," Kenji replied. "That would be very painful. And if that same person then shot you with a second arrow in the same spot, would that be painful? Yes, even more painful, Kenji answered, wondering where this was leading. Master Tenzin nodded. In life, Kenji, we cannot always avoid the first arrow. This represents the unavoidable pain that comes with having a human body and living in this world. Your back hurts during meditation. That's the first arrow. Physical discomfort arises. That's the first arrow. Sadness appears. Anxiety surfaces. These are first arrows. They are part of the human condition. We all experience sickness, aging, disappointment, loss, and physical discomfort. The Buddha never promised we could eliminate the first arrow. Kenji listened carefully, beginning to sense something important in these words. The master continued, "But the second arrow, Kenji, this is the arrow we shoot at ourselves. This is the suffering we add to the pain through our reaction to it. When your back hurts during meditation and you think, this shouldn't be happening, I'm doing something wrong, I'm a failure at meditation. This proves I'll never find peace. You have just shot yourself with the second arrow. When sadness arises and you tell yourself, I shouldn't feel this way. What's wrong with me? I should be more advanced than this. You've shot another arrow. The second arrow is our resistance to the first arrow, our judgment about it, our story about what it means." Kenji felt something shift in his understanding. "So you're saying that pain is inevitable, but my suffering about the pain is optional?" "Exactly," Master Tenzin said. "The Buddha taught that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. We cannot control where the first arrows come. They are part of life's natural unfolding. But we have a choice about whether we shoot second arrows. We can learn to meet pain, discomfort, and difficulty without adding the layer of mental and emotional suffering that comes from resistance and judgment." The master picked up a small stone from the ground. Imagine this stone represents physical pain or emotional discomfort. The first arrow. It has weight. It takes up space, but it is what it is. He placed the stone in his palm. Now imagine I start telling myself stories about this stone. I think about how heavy it is, how unfair it is that I have to hold it, how it proves something is wrong with me, how I can't be happy while holding it, how I'll probably have to hold it forever. As he spoke, he pretended to add more and more invisible weight to his hand, his arm beginning to shake as if under tremendous burden. See how the stone hasn't changed, but my experience of carrying it has become immensely heavier. That additional weight, that's the second arrow. That's the suffering I'm creating through my thoughts about the pain, not the pain itself." Kenji sat quietly, absorbing this teaching. Master Tenzin placed a gentle hand on his student's shoulder. "When you sit in meditation and discomfort arises, can you simply feel it as sensation without the story? Can you notice? There is tightness in the lower back. There is pressure in the knees, without adding, this shouldn't be here. Something is wrong. I'm failing." When sadness appears, can you observe? Sadness is present, without creating a whole narrative about what it means. "But Master," Kenji asked, "doesn't it still hurt? Even without the story, the first arrow is still painful." "Yes," Tenzin agreed. "And this is important to understand. We're not trying to pretend pain doesn't exist or to somehow transcend being human. The first arrow will hurt. The difference is that without the second arrow, without the resistance and story-making, the pain is just pain. It arises, it exists for a time, and it passes. It doesn't become suffering, doesn't expand into anguish, doesn't grow into despair. Most importantly, it doesn't prevent peace. You can experience physical discomfort and still have a peaceful mind. You can feel sadness and still have equanimity. The pain and the peace can coexist when you stop fighting reality." Over the following weeks, Kenji practiced with this new understanding. When his back ached during meditation, he noticed the sensations directly, just as sensations, without the mental commentary about what they meant. He found that while the physical discomfort remained, it no longer disturbed his peace. Without the second arrow of resistance and judgment, the first arrow became much more bearable. When difficult emotions arose, he practiced the same approach. Anxiety is present. Frustration is here. He observed these experiences without adding the extra layer of suffering that came from thinking they shouldn't be there, or that they meant something was wrong with him or his practice. Gradually, Kenji made a profound discovery. The peace he had been seeking wasn't the absence of all discomfort or difficulty. It was the ability to be present with whatever arose without being thrown into reactivity. He learned to meet life's inevitable first arrows with grace, conserving his energy by not shooting second arrows at himself. The Buddha's teaching on the two arrows appears in the Salatha Sutta, where he explains that, when touched by a painful feeling, an untrained person sorrows, grieves, and laments, becoming distraught. Such a person feels two pains, physical and mental. But a well-trained person, when touched by a painful feeling, does not sorrow, grieve, or lament, does not become distraught, and feels only one pain, physical, not mental. This teaching is revolutionary in its implications. It suggests that a huge portion of what we experience as suffering is not inherent in our circumstances, but created by our relationship to those circumstances, by the stories we tell ourselves, and the resistance we bring to what is. Consider chronic pain, a condition millions of people live with. Research in pain psychology has shown that two people with identical physiological conditions can have vastly different experiences of suffering. The difference often lies in what psychologists call pain catastrophizing, the tendency to magnify the threat value of pain, feel helpless about it, and ruminate about it. This is precisely the second arrow. When someone with chronic pain thinks, "This pain is ruining my life. I can't stand this. It's never going to get better. I can't be happy while I'm in pain," they're experiencing not just the pain itself, but also the suffering created by their thoughts about the pain. Mindfulness-based approaches to chronic pain teach patients to observe pain sensations directly without the catastrophizing thoughts. Participants in these programs often report that while the pain itself may not decrease, their suffering decreases dramatically. They learn to distinguish between the first and second arrows. The same principle applies to emotional pain. When grief arises after a loss, the grief itself is the first arrow, a natural, unavoidable response. But when we add thoughts like, "I should be over this by now," "Something is wrong with me for feeling this way," "I'll never be happy again," we shoot second arrows that compound our suffering. Buddhist practice isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending we don't hurt. It's about meeting our genuine experience with acceptance and compassion, rather than resistance and judgment. It's about understanding that we can feel pain without creating suffering, that we can experience difficulty without adding drama, that we can be fully human without making our humanity into a problem. In your own life, can you begin to distinguish between first and second arrows? When you experience physical discomfort, can you feel the sensations directly without immediately creating a story about them? When difficult emotions arise, can you simply acknowledge them? Fear is present. Sadness is here, without adding judgment about whether you should be feeling this way. Notice how much energy goes into shooting second arrows, into resisting, judging, and creating stories about your experience. Notice how this resistance doesn't actually change the first arrow, but adds tremendous additional suffering. And notice what happens when you meet the first arrow with acceptance. Not passive resignation, but clear-eyed acknowledgement. This is what is present right now. In that acceptance, you might discover that you're more resilient than you believed, that you can hold more than you thought possible, and that peace doesn't require the absence of all difficulty. It only requires the absence of the war you wage against your own experience. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, can you practice this teaching? When physical discomfort arises, a tight shoulder, tension in your jaw, restlessness in your body, can you simply feel it as sensation without adding the story that something is wrong? When thoughts about tomorrow arise, when worries surface, when your mind reviews the day, can you observe these mental events without shooting the second arrow of, "I shouldn't be thinking, I should be asleep by now. What's wrong with me?" The first arrow of thoughts arising is natural. The second arrow of frustration about those thoughts is optional. Let the first arrows be as they are. Put down the bow, stop shooting second arrows, and in that simple act of acceptance, discover the peace that was always available beneath the struggle. Our fourth story takes us to a quiet temple garden where an elderly monk named Ryokan spent his days tending flowers and teaching occasionally to students who sought his wisdom. This is the story of the stolen moon. Ryokan lived very simply in a small hut at the edge of the temple grounds. He owned almost nothing, just his robes, a few books, his meditation cushion, and a beloved bowl that he used for meals and for collecting offerings when he walked through the village. He spent his days in meditation, in caring for the temple garden, and in writing poetry that expressed the profound peace he had found in a life of simplicity. One evening, Ryokan returned to his hut after teaching at the main temple to find that a thief had broken in. The hut had been ransacked, and his few possessions were gone. The thief had taken his extra robe, his books, and even his precious bowl. Standing in his empty hut, Ryokan looked around at what remained, which was almost nothing. Most people would have felt violated, angry, or devastated. But Ryokan simply sat down and looked out the window at the full moon rising over the mountains. It was a spectacular sight, luminous and perfect, casting silver light across the landscape. Ryokan sat there for a long time, absorbed in the beauty of the moon. Then he picked up his brush and wrote a poem. The thief left it behind, the moon at my window. The next morning, when students arrived and discovered what had happened, they were outraged on Ryokan's behalf. "Master," they said, "we must find who did this. We must recover your belongings. This is terrible." But Ryokan smiled gently. The thief took what he could carry, but he left behind what is most precious. He took objects that I barely needed, things that would have eventually broken or worn out anyway. But look, he gestured toward the garden where morning light was illuminating dewdrops on the flowers. He couldn't take the morning light. He couldn't steal the bird songs. He couldn't carry away the peace I've found. The moon is still here for both of us to enjoy. One student protested. "But, Master, those things were yours. Don't you feel angry that someone violated your home and took your possessions?" Ryokan considered this thoughtfully. "Tell me," he said, "if I spend today being angry, will my things return?" "No, Master," the student admitted. "And if I spend today resentful and bitter, will that prevent future thefts?" "No, Master. Then anger would only add to the theft. The thief would have stolen my possessions and my peace. Why would I give him both? He has already taken things that don't matter. Should I also give him the things that do?" Ryokan paused, then continued. "Besides, consider the thief. He lives in such poverty, either of material goods or of spirit, that he must steal to survive. He carries the weight of his actions. He must live with the fear of being caught, the shame of stealing, the poverty that drove him to theft. In truth, I feel compassion for him. He took so little and carries so much." Several days later, something unexpected happened. Late at night, there was a soft knock at Ryokan's door. When he opened it, a young man stood there, head bowed, holding Ryokan's bowl and books. It was the thief. "Master," the young man said, his voice breaking, "I heard what you said to your students. I was hiding nearby when they came. I have been a thief for years, but no one I've stolen from has ever responded as you did. Most chase me, curse me, or call for the authorities. You offered me compassion I don't deserve." Tears ran down the young man's face. "I cannot keep these things. They burn my hands with shame. I've returned what I could. I sold your robe already. I'm sorry, but please take these back." Ryokan looked at the young man with infinite kindness. "Please, come in. You look tired and hungry." He took the bowl, went to his small store of rice, and prepared a simple meal for them both. As they ate together in silence, the thief began to weep openly. When the meal was finished, Ryokan spoke. "I don't need you to return these things. If you need them more than I do, please keep them. But I wonder if you might need something else more than objects. Would you like to learn a different way to live? The temple always needs help in the gardens, and you would be welcome to stay and learn if you wish." The young man looked up in disbelief. "Master, I'm a thief. Why would you help me?" "You were a thief," Ryokan corrected gently. "Right now, you are a person who is suffering and seeking. That's who I see before me. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow hasn't arrived. Right now, in this moment, you have the opportunity to choose differently. Every moment offers that choice. The young man stayed. He worked in the temple gardens, learned meditation, and eventually became a monk himself. Years later, he would teach others with special compassion for those who had lost their way, knowing from experience that one moment of genuine kindness could change the entire direction of a life. Ryokan's story illustrates multiple profound Buddhist teachings. First, it reveals the difference between what can be taken from us and what cannot. In our modern world, we often invest our sense of security and identity in things that are fundamentally impermanent and beyond our ultimate control. Our possessions, our status, our circumstances, even our bodies and relationships, all of these are subject to change and loss. The Buddha taught about the 5 remembrances, reflections that monks recite daily. I am subject to aging. I have not gone beyond aging. I am subject to illness. I have not gone beyond illness. I am subject to death. I have not gone beyond death. I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and have my actions as my arbitrator. Whatever I do, for good or for evil, to that will I fall heir. These reflections aren't meant to be depressing but liberating. When we deeply accept the impermanence of all conditioned things, we stop placing our ultimate happiness and security in what cannot provide it. We turn our attention to what Ryokan recognized, the unconditioned aspects of existence that cannot be stolen, the beauty of nature, the capacity for awareness, inner peace, loving kindness. These qualities arise from within and don't depend on external circumstances. When Ryokan wrote, "The thief left it behind, the moon at my window," he was pointing to this crucial distinction. Everything the thief took was extra, was addition to life, but not life itself. The moon, representing the beauty and wonder available in each moment, remained. More fundamentally, Ryokan's own awakened nature, his capacity for peace and compassion, was completely untouched by the theft. This teaching connects to what Buddhism calls the deathless, the unconditioned awareness that is our true nature. This awareness is never born and never dies, never gains or loses anything. It is the constant background against which all the changing phenomena of life appear. When we identify primarily with changing phenomena, with our possessions, circumstances, and even our thoughts and emotions, we live in constant vulnerability. Everything we identify with can be lost. But when we recognize our deeper nature as awareness itself, we discover something that cannot be taken or destroyed. The second profound aspect of Ryokan's response is his refusal to add suffering to loss. His question to his student is crucial. If I spend today being angry, will my things return? This is the essence of wisdom. We cannot prevent certain losses and difficulties in life, but we absolutely can choose whether to compound them with our mental and emotional reactions. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, whose teachings parallel Buddhist wisdom in many ways, taught that we should distinguish between what is in our control and what is not. Our possessions being stolen is not in our control after it has happened, but our response to that theft is entirely within our control. By choosing peace over anger, acceptance over resistance, Ryokan demonstrates mastery over the one domain we actually can control, our own minds and hearts. The third teaching in this story is perhaps the most profound, Ryokan's compassion for the thief. This illustrates the Buddhist principle of mudita and karuna, sympathetic joy and compassion even toward those who harm us. Ryokan recognized that the thief's actions came from his own suffering, from poverty, desperation, or the mental afflictions that Buddhism calls kleshas, greed, hatred, and delusion. The Buddha taught, "Hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed." This is an ancient and eternal law. Ryokan embodied this teaching perfectly. By meeting the thief's harmful action with compassion rather than hatred, he didn't just maintain his own peace, he created the conditions for the thief's transformation. Consider what happened. The thief had probably stolen many times before. He had probably been cursed, chased, threatened. These responses likely only hardened his belief that he lived in a hostile world where he had to take what he needed by force. But Ryokan's response of compassion was so unexpected, so contrary to the thief's worldview, that it created a crack in the hardened shell of his identity. For the first time, someone looked at him and saw not a thief, but a suffering human being. This recognition of his deeper humanity, beyond his actions, opened the possibility for change. The thief's transformation also illustrates another Buddhist teaching, that all beings possess Buddha nature, the potential for awakening. No matter how far someone has strayed, no matter what actions they've committed, the potential for transformation remains. Ryokan saw this potential and called it forth with his kindness. When Ryokan said, "You were a thief. Right now, you are a person who is suffering and seeking," he was teaching the profound Buddhist understanding that identity is not fixed. We are not defined by our past actions. In each moment, we have the opportunity to choose differently, to step onto a new path. This is incredibly liberating, both for ourselves when we've made mistakes, and for how we view others who have harmed us. In your own life, what are you afraid of losing? What would you feel was stolen from you if it disappeared? Can you distinguish between what can actually be taken, possessions, circumstances, relationships, and what cannot? Your awareness, your capacity for peace, your ability to appreciate beauty and find meaning. When you experience loss, can you ask yourself Ryokan's question, "If I spend today in anger or grief, will what is lost return?" This isn't about suppressing genuine feelings. If grief arises after loss, that's natural and healthy. But there's a difference between feeling grief and adding layers of resentment, victimhood, or despair on top of it. Can you feel what you feel without adding extra suffering through resistance and story making? And perhaps most challenging, when someone harms you, can you find even a small space of compassion for that person? Can you recognize that people who cause harm are themselves suffering, caught in their own confusion and pain? This doesn't mean accepting harmful behavior or failing to set appropriate boundaries. It means understanding that responding to harm with hatred only perpetuates the cycle of suffering, while responding with wisdom and compassion creates the possibility for healing and transformation. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, consider what truly matters to you. Not the things that can be taken, but the things that remain regardless of circumstances. Your capacity for awareness is here. The beauty of existence continues. Your potential for peace and compassion remains untouched by the day's difficulties. Like Ryokan, you can notice what remains rather than fixating on what was lost. You can choose peace over resentment. And you can rest tonight knowing that what truly matters cannot be stolen. Our fifth story takes us deep into the mountains, to a remote hermitage where a young seeker named Yuki had traveled, hoping to find the secret to happiness. This is the story of the Master's Tea. Yuki had spent years searching for contentment. She had tried accumulating wealth, but found that no matter how much she earned, she always wanted more. She had pursued pleasure and entertainment, but discovered that the joy they brought faded quickly, leaving her empty. She had sought achievement and recognition, but found that praise from others never quite filled the longing inside her. Finally, she heard of a Zen master who lived alone in the mountains. Someone who was said to have discovered the secret to lasting happiness despite owning almost nothing and living in complete simplicity. Determined to learn this secret, Yuki made the difficult journey up the mountain path. When she arrived at the master's simple hut, she found an old woman sitting peacefully on the wooden porch, looking out at the mountains. The woman's face was deeply lined with age, but her eyes were bright and clear, and there was something about her presence that radiated contentment. "Master," Yuki said, bowing respectfully, "I have traveled far to ask you about happiness. I have everything that people say should make me happy. Comfort, success, friends, yet I feel empty inside. How can I find true happiness? What is the secret?" The old master smiled and gestured for Yuki to sit down. "You must be tired from your journey. Let me prepare some tea, and we will talk." Yuki sat on the porch, barely containing her impatience as the master slowly rose and went into the hut. She could hear the sounds of the master preparing tea, the gentle clinking of cups, the sound of water being poured, the quiet movements of someone performing a simple task with complete attention. Finally, the master emerged, carrying a tray with a simple clay teapot and 2 cups. She poured the tea slowly, steam rising in delicate wisps. The master handed Yuki a cup and then took one for herself. "Before I answer your question," the master said, "please drink your tea with me." Yuki took the cup, but her mind was racing with anticipation about the wisdom she was about to receive. As she lifted the cup to her lips, she was already thinking about her next question, about how she would apply the master's teaching, about whether this journey would finally give her what she'd been seeking. She drank the tea quickly, barely tasting it, waiting for the master to speak. The master sipped her own tea slowly, seeming to savor each taste, her attention completely absorbed in the simple act of drinking. She showed no hurry to speak, no concern for Yuki's obvious impatience. After several long minutes, the master set down her empty cup and looked at Yuki. "Tell me, how was your tea?" Yuki felt confused by the question. "It was fine, master, but please, I've come so far. Won't you tell me the secret to happiness?" The master smiled gently. "I just did." Yuki's confusion deepened. "I don't understand. We just drank tea. How is that the secret to happiness? Tell me," the master asked again. "What did the tea taste like?" Yuki hesitated. I'm not sure. I didn't really notice. I was thinking about other things." "Exactly," the master said softly. "You traveled all this way to learn about happiness, and when it was offered to you in a simple cup of tea, you missed it completely. You were so focused on seeking happiness in the future, on finding some secret knowledge, that you couldn't be present for the happiness available right now." The master poured more tea into both cups. "This is the great paradox. Happiness is not something to be pursued or achieved. It is something to be recognized in this moment. It was here in the tea, in the warmth of the cup in your hands, in the taste on your tongue, in the feeling of rest after your long journey. But you were somewhere else, in your thoughts about the future, in your ideas about what happiness should be, and so you missed the happiness that was actually here." Yuki sat very still, beginning to understand. The master continued, "You said you have everything that should make you happy, but you feel empty. This is because you are never where life is actually happening. When you were earning wealth, you were thinking about what you would do once you had enough. When you were seeking pleasure, you were already thinking about the next pleasure. When you received praise, you were worried about whether you could maintain it. You have spent your whole life postponing happiness, believing it exists somewhere other than here, in some time other than now." "But master," Yuki asked, "how can I be happy in ordinary moments? Shouldn't happiness come from something special, something meaningful?" The old woman laughed, a sound like water over stones. "And what could be more meaningful than being fully alive in this moment? You are breathing. You are aware. You are experiencing the miracle of existence itself. This moment contains the entire universe, the mountains, the sky, the tea in your cup, the feeling of being alive. How much more special does it need to be?" She gestured to the view from the porch. "Look at these mountains. They have been here for millions of years. They will be here long after we are gone. They are neither happy nor unhappy. They simply are, completely present, completely themselves. This is their perfection. And in this moment, you can simply be too, not seeking, not lacking, not becoming, just being. This is happiness." Yuki felt tears beginning to form. "Are you saying I've been chasing something that was always right here?" "Yes," the master said with great kindness. "And you are not alone. This is what almost everyone does. We are taught from childhood to always be moving towards something, to always be improving, achieving, acquiring. We forget how to simply be. We lose the ability to receive the life that is already here." The master picked up her cup and held it in both hands. "Now, drink your tea again, but this time, be here for it. Feel the warmth of the cup. Notice the color of the liquid. Smell the fragrance. Taste each sip fully. Let this moment be enough." Yuki lifted her cup with both hands, following the master's guidance. She felt the smooth clay under her fingers, noticed its warmth spreading into her palms. She brought the cup close and breathed in the delicate aroma. Then she sipped slowly, and for the first time, she truly tasted the tea. It was slightly bitter, slightly sweet, complex and subtle. The warmth spread down her throat and into her body. And in that moment of complete presence, something shifted inside her. The constant seeking, the restless hunger that had driven her for years, became quiet. She wasn't thinking about anything else. She wasn't wanting anything else. She was simply there, drinking tea on a mountain porch with an old master, and it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I understand, Master. The happiness I've been seeking was never in the future. It was always here, in the present moment, waiting for me to arrive. The Master nodded. And now you know the secret. You don't need to travel anywhere else. You don't need to achieve anything else. You don't need to become anyone else. Happiness is available wherever you are, whenever you are fully present for your life. It is here when you drink tea. It is here when you walk. It is here when you breathe. It has always been here. Yuki stayed with the master for several days, learning to drink tea, to walk, to sit, to simply be. And when she finally descended the mountain to return to her life, she carried with her not some special knowledge or technique, but something far more valuable, the understanding that happiness was not a destination to reach, but a way of being present for the journey. Years later, when people came to Yuki seeking advice about happiness, she would smile and invite them to have tea. And in that simple offering, she would pass on the teaching that had transformed her life. The story of the Master's tea illuminates one of the most profound and challenging teachings in all of Buddhism, that what we seek is already present, and our very seeking is what obscures it. The Buddha taught in the Kalama Sutta, "Do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in anything simply because it is spoken and rumored by many. But after observation and analysis, when you find that anything agrees with reason and is conducive to the good and benefit of one and all, then accept it and live up to it." Yuki's journey up the mountain represents a pattern most of us live, the belief that happiness, peace, or fulfillment exists somewhere other than where we are. We think it will come when we get the job, when we find the relationship, when we achieve the goal, when we finally arrive at some future moment where conditions are perfect. This pattern has a name in Buddhist psychology, tanha, often translated as craving or thirst. It's not just desire for pleasant experiences, but more fundamentally, it's the restless movement away from the present moment, the constant feeling that something is missing or wrong with what is here now. The Buddha identified tanha as the root cause of dukkha, suffering, or unsatisfactoriness. When we live in constant seeking mode, perpetually oriented toward a future moment when things will finally be right, we cannot receive the goodness that already exists. Like Yuki drinking her first cup of tea while thinking about something else, we consume our lives without actually tasting them. Modern psychology has begun to recognize this pattern. Research on what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill shows that we quickly adapt to improved circumstances. We get the promotion we've been seeking, and within weeks, our happiness returns to baseline. We buy the house we've been dreaming of, and soon we're focused on what it lacks. This isn't because we're broken or ungrateful. It's because we've been conditioned to perpetually seek rather than receive. The Master's question, "How was your tea?" is deceptively simple but profoundly diagnostic. It reveals whether we are actually present for our lives or whether we are somewhere else, in thoughts about the past or future, in judgments and comparisons, in the constant mental narrative that separates us from direct experience. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master, taught extensively about this through his emphasis on mindfulness. He would often say, "Drink your tea slowly and reverently, as if it is the axis on which the world Earth revolves, slowly, evenly, without rushing toward the future." This isn't about tea specifically. It's about bringing full presence to whatever we're doing. The Master's teaching that happiness is not something to be pursued or achieved, but something to be recognized in this moment, directly challenges the entire structure of how most of us have been taught to live. We are raised in cultures that emphasize constant improvement, achievement, and acquisition. The implicit message is always, you are not enough as you are, you need to become more, do more, have more. Buddhism offers a radically different view. The Pali word for happiness, sukha, doesn't mean a temporary pleasant feeling, but rather a deep sense of well-being that comes from alignment with reality. This well-being is our natural state when we're not caught in resistance and seeking. It's not something we need to create or earn. It's what remains when we stop disturbing our peace with constant wanting and rejecting. The Master's comparison to the mountains is particularly powerful. Mountains don't seek to be different than they are. They don't compare themselves to other mountains. They don't worry about the future or regret the past. They simply are, completely present in their mountainness. This isn't because mountains are enlightened beings, but because they lack the conceptual mind that creates division between what is and what we think should be. We have that conceptual mind, and we cannot simply eliminate it. But we can learn to recognize when we're lost in it, when we're missing our actual lives because we're absorbed in thoughts about life. This is the practice of mindfulness, returning again and again to direct experience, feeling the cup in our hands, tasting the tea, hearing the sounds around us, feeling the breath in our body. When Yuki finally drinks her tea with full presence and discovers that it was enough, it was more than enough, it was everything, she's experiencing what Zen calls Satori, a moment of awakening. Not awakening to some special state, but awakening to the extraordinary nature of ordinary experience when we meet it with full awareness. This doesn't mean that life is always pleasant, or that we should abandon all goals and preferences. The Master still made tea rather than sitting without drinking. She still maintained her hut. She still engaged with life. But she didn't make her happiness conditional on circumstances being different than they are. She found completeness in each moment while still participating in the natural flow of life. In your own experience, how often are you actually present for your life? When you eat, are you tasting your food, or are you scrolling through your phone, planning your afternoon, or lost in thought? When you're with people you care about, are you truly there, or is part of your attention already moving toward the next thing? When you're walking, do you feel your feet touching the ground, or are you entirely in your head? This isn't a judgment. We've all been conditioned into this pattern of perpetual distraction and seeking. But we can learn differently. We can practice presence the way Yuki learned to drink tea mindfully. We can begin to notice when we're somewhere else and gently return to where we actually are. The Buddha taught, the secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, worry about the future, or anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly. This wisdom is the essence of the Master's teaching. Tonight, as you lie here preparing for sleep, can you practice this presence? Can you feel your body resting on the bed, the weight and warmth of the blankets, the gentle rhythm of your breathing? Can you let this moment be enough, without needing it to be different, without rushing towards sleep, without reviewing the past or planning the future? This moment, exactly as it is, contains everything you need. The happiness you've been seeking is here in your breath, in your awareness, in the simple miracle of being alive. You don't need to go anywhere or become anyone else. You are already home. Rest in that recognition now. Our sixth story takes us to a monastery where a beloved teacher had just passed away, leaving the community in deep grief. This is the story of the Master's funeral. In a monastery nestled in a quiet valley, a Zen master named Hakuin had taught for over 40 years. He was deeply loved by his students for his wisdom, his kindness, and his profound understanding of the Dharma. He had guided hundreds of seekers toward awakening, and his presence had been the heart of the monastery for as long as most of the monks could remember. When Master Hakuin died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 87, the entire monastery went into mourning. Students wept openly. Some felt lost without their teacher's guidance. Others struggled with questions about impermanence and death that suddenly felt urgent and personal. The monastery prepared for a traditional funeral ceremony. According to custom, students would offer incense, chant sutras, and pay their respects to their departed teacher. The abbot, who had been Hakuin's senior student for decades, was expected to deliver the funeral address, sharing final teachings and honoring the master's life. On the day of the funeral, the meditation hall was filled with monks, students, and community members who had come to pay their respects. Master Hakuin's body had been prepared according to tradition and placed in the center of the hall, surrounded by flowers and candles. The atmosphere was heavy with sadness and solemnity. Everyone waited for the abbot to speak, to offer words of comfort and wisdom during this difficult time. The abbot walked slowly to the front of the hall. He stood before the assembly in silence for a long moment, looking at the faces filled with grief. Then he did something completely unexpected. He began to laugh. Not a small chuckle, but a deep, genuine laugh that filled the entire hall. The assembled students looked at each other in shock and confusion. How could the abbot laugh at their beloved teacher's funeral? Had grief made him lose his mind? Some students felt offended, others disturbed. The laughter continued for several moments, and then the abbot spoke. "My dear friends, forgive me. I'm not laughing at our loss. I'm laughing at the profound teaching Master Hakuin is offering us even in death. Look at what's happening here. Look at how we're clinging, how we're suffering, how we're resisting the very truth that Master Hakuin spent 40 years trying to teach us." He paused, his eyes sweeping across the assembled students with great compassion. For 40 years, Master Hakuin taught us about impermanence. He taught us that all conditioned things arise and pass away, that nothing in this world of form lasts forever, that attachment to what must change is the root of suffering. He taught us these truths with words, with koans, with his example. And now, in his death, he is teaching us the same truth in the most direct way possible. Yet look at us, still clinging, still resisting, still wanting reality to be different than it is. The abbot's voice became gentler. "Don't you see the perfection of this teaching? Master Hakuin has demonstrated impermanence in the most undeniable way. His body, which we thought of as Master Hakuin, has ceased functioning. The form we identified with our teacher has changed, and in our grief, we can finally understand viscerally, not just intellectually, what he tried to teach us about the nature of all things." One student stood up, tears streaming down his face. "But Abbot, how can you speak of perfection? We've lost our teacher. He's gone. How can we not grieve?" The abbot nodded with deep kindness. "I didn't say we shouldn't grieve. Grief is natural. When we love someone and they die, sadness arises. This is the first arrow we spoke of in other teachings, the unavoidable pain of being human. Feel your grief fully, honor it. But notice if you're adding second arrows. Are you telling yourself that this shouldn't have happened? Are you angry at impermanence? Are you resisting the natural flow of life and death?" He continued. Master Hakuin would want us to ask deeper questions. What is it that we've actually lost? Is Master Hakuin his body? If so, then yes, we've lost him. But is that all he was? What about the teachings he gave us? Are they gone? What about the understanding he helped us develop? Has that disappeared? What about the love and compassion he awakened in us? Where has that gone? The abbot gestured toward the body. This form was never Master Hakuin's true nature. It was a temporary manifestation, like a wave on the ocean. The wave rises, takes form, and then returns to the ocean. Has anything actually been lost? The water remains. The ocean continues. Only the temporary form has changed. Another student spoke up, her voice trembling. "But his wisdom, his presence, his guidance, we can't ask him questions anymore. We can't learn from him. That part is truly gone." The abbot smiled gently. "Is it? Right now, in this moment, Master Hakuin is teaching us profoundly. He's teaching us through our grief, through our resistance, through our clinging. Every question that arises in you is an opportunity for deeper understanding. Every moment of sadness can deepen your compassion for all beings who experience loss. He's teaching us even now, if we have eyes to see." The abbot's expression became very soft. "Master Hakuin once told me something I didn't fully understand until now. He said, 'When I die, don't waste time mourning the wave. Recognize the ocean.' What did he mean? He meant that his individual form, his personality, his body, these were like a wave, a temporary rising of the eternal ocean of consciousness, of Buddha nature, of the unborn and undying awareness that is our true nature. The wave has subsided, but the ocean remains, and it was always the ocean that was teaching you, not the wave. You all carry Master Hakuin within you. Every teaching he gave you lives in your understanding. Every moment of compassion he showed you has changed who you are. Every insight he helped you realize is now part of you. In this way, he hasn't gone anywhere. He has become part of you, part of the Dharma that flows through this monastery, part of the continuous stream of wisdom that passes from teacher to student through the generations. The abbot picked up a stick of incense and lit it. As the smoke began to rise, he said, "Watch this smoke. It rises from the incense, takes form, and then disperses into the air." Has the smoke been destroyed when it disperses? No, it has simply changed form, become part of the air we breathe. This is the nature of all things. Nothing is ever truly created or destroyed. Everything is in constant transformation. He placed the incense in the holder and turned back to the assembly. Master Hakuin's final teaching is this: stop clinging to forms. Stop believing that love depends on physical presence. Stop thinking that wisdom requires a living teacher. Everything you need is already within you. It always was. Master Hakuin just helped you see it. The abbot bowed deeply toward Hakuin's body. Thank you, Master, for this final lesson. Thank you for teaching us about impermanence, not just with words, but with your death. Thank you for continuing to guide us even now. Thank you for helping us understand that nothing of true value can ever be lost. He turned to the students. Now, let us honor Master Hakuin not with tears and resistance, but with understanding and acceptance. Let us take the grief we feel and transform it into deeper compassion for all beings who suffer loss. Let us take our love for him and extend it to all of life. This is how we truly honor a teacher, by embodying their teachings. The funeral ceremony continued, but something had shifted in the hall. Students still felt sadness, but many also felt a strange peace settling over them. They began to see their beloved teacher not as gone but as transformed. His wisdom now living through them, his compassion now flowing through their hearts, his teachings now alive in their understanding. In the days and weeks that followed, students would often report feeling Master Hakuin's presence more strongly than before his death. Not as a ghost or spirit, but as a living understanding that arose in moments of confusion, as compassion that flowed through them in moments of difficulty, as wisdom that illuminated their practice. They realized that their teacher had never been separate from them. The boundary they had imagined between teacher and student, between self and other, had always been an illusion. Master Hakuin was the Dharma, and the Dharma was alive in each of them. The story of Master Hakuin's funeral teaches us one of the most challenging yet liberating truths in Buddhist philosophy: the nature of impermanence and our relationship with loss. The Buddha made impermanence, or anicca, one of the three marks of existence, along with suffering and non-self. He taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. Yet intellectual understanding of impermanence is vastly different from the visceral, heart-breaking encounter with it when someone we love dies. The abbot's laughter at the funeral might seem shocking or inappropriate, but it represents a profound spiritual maturity. He wasn't laughing at death or dismissing grief. He was laughing at the recognition of how deeply we remain attached to permanence despite all our study and practice. He was laughing at the cosmic irony that a teacher who spent 40 years teaching impermanence would use his death as the ultimate lesson on that very subject. This story challenges us to examine what we believe we lose when someone dies. In conventional understanding, we lose everything: their presence, their voice, their guidance, their love. But Buddhist philosophy invites us to look more deeply. What is the nature of this person we believe we've lost? Are they merely their physical form? If we identify a person entirely with their body, then yes, when the body dies, they are completely gone. But is this true? Consider your own experience of people who have influenced you. Perhaps a grandparent, a teacher, a friend who has died. In what sense are they truly gone? Their words still echo in your mind. The lessons they taught you still guide your actions. The love they showed you still warms your heart. The ways they changed you remain part of who you are. In this sense, they live on, not as ghosts or spirits, but as living influences that continue to shape reality. The abbot's question, what have we actually lost, points to the Buddhist teaching of anatta, or non-self. According to this teaching, what we call a person is not a fixed, permanent entity, but a constantly changing process, a flowing stream of physical and mental phenomena. The body changes every moment. Thoughts and feelings arise and pass. Even personality traits shift over time. What we call Master Hakuin, or any person's name, is a convenient label we place on this flowing process, but it doesn't point to any unchanging essence. When we understand this deeply, death becomes less of an absolute ending and more of a transformation. The particular pattern we called Master Hakuin has dissolved, but nothing that was truly real has been destroyed. The elements of his body return to the earth. The energy that animated him transforms. The influences he created continue to ripple outward. The consciousness that was never truly separate from universal consciousness returns to its source, like a wave subsiding back into the ocean. This is what the abbot meant when he quoted Master Hakuin. "When I die, don't waste time mourning the wave. Recognize the ocean. The wave is the individual manifestation, the temporary form that rises and falls. The ocean is the vast, unconditioned reality from which all forms emerge and into which they all return. When we identify only with the wave, death is a tragedy, an ending, a loss. But when we recognize the ocean, death is simply a transformation, one movement in an eternal dance." This teaching doesn't invalidate grief. The abbot acknowledges that sadness is natural when someone we love dies. This is what Buddhists call the first arrow, the unavoidable pain of being human. But he distinguishes this from the second arrow of resistance, the suffering we create by insisting that death shouldn't happen, that impermanence is somehow wrong, that reality should conform to our desires for permanence. There's a beautiful teaching in Tibetan Buddhism about transforming poison into medicine. Every difficult experience, including grief, can become a doorway to deeper understanding and greater compassion. When we experience the pain of loss fully, without resistance, it can crack open our hearts and help us understand the suffering of all beings who face loss. It can deepen our compassion, strengthen our understanding of impermanence, and help us treasure the present moment more fully. The abbot's suggestion to take the grief we feel and transform it into deeper compassion for all beings who suffer loss is a practice called Tonglen in Tibetan Buddhism. We breathe in the pain, our own and others, and breathe out compassion and healing. We use our suffering as a bridge to connect with the universal human experience of loss, recognizing that everyone we see has lost someone, will lose someone, or fears losing someone. In this recognition, our personal grief becomes a doorway to universal compassion. The phenomenon that students reported after Hakuin's death, feeling his presence more strongly than before, is actually quite common and points to something profound. When someone is physically present, we often relate to them as separate from us. We see them as outside ourselves, as other. But when they die, if we've truly learned from them, they become internal. Their teachings integrate into our understanding. Their love becomes part of our capacity to love. Their wisdom becomes our wisdom. In this sense, they become closer, not farther away. This is the meaning of the Dharma transmission in Zen Buddhism. The teacher doesn't give the student something the student didn't already have. Rather, the teacher helps the student recognize what was always present. When the teacher dies, the student realizes that the wisdom was never in the teacher's body or words, it was in the nature of reality itself, accessible to anyone who looks deeply. Tonight, as you reflect on this teaching, you might think of people you've lost. Can you feel how they remain present in the ways they changed you, in the love they awakened, in the lessons they taught? Can you recognize that what was most precious about them was never their physical form, but the love, wisdom, and connection you shared, and that these things cannot die? Can you also reflect on your own impermanence? Not in a morbid way, but as a reminder that this precious human life is temporary. This body will age and die. This particular wave will subside back into the ocean. Knowing this, how do you want to live right now? What matters most when we understand that nothing lasts forever? The Buddha's final words to his disciples were, "All conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence." He was reminding them that his physical presence was temporary, but the truth he pointed to was eternal. The same is true for all of us. Our forms are temporary, but what we truly are, the awareness, the love, the Buddha nature within, that is unborn and undying. Rest in that recognition now. You are not just the wave, you are also the ocean. The form may change, but what you truly are has never been born and can never die. Our seventh story takes us to a monastery kitchen where a young monk named Taro was learning an unexpected lesson about the nature of spiritual practice. This is the story of washing the bowls. Taro had come to the monastery filled with enthusiasm for enlightenment. He spent hours in meditation, studied the sutras diligently, and asked his teacher profound questions about the nature of reality. He was dedicated, sincere, and absolutely certain that enlightenment would come through intensive spiritual effort. What he didn't understand was that this very certainty was his greatest obstacle. The monastery had a simple rule. All monks participated in the daily work that kept the community functioning. They grew vegetables, repaired buildings, cleaned the halls, and prepared meals. After each meal, every monk was responsible for washing their own bowl in the large communal sink in the monastery kitchen. Taro performed these duties, but he saw them as interruptions to his real practice. When it was time to work in the garden, he would rush through the tasks, his mind focused on getting back to meditation. When it was his turn to wash dishes after meals, he would clean his bowl as quickly as possible, often doing a careless job, eager to return to studying the Dharma texts he kept hidden in his robe. One day, after the noon meal, Taro was hurrying through washing his bowl, his mind already composing questions he wanted to ask his teacher about emptiness and Buddha nature. He splashed water around carelessly, barely scrubbed the bowl, and was about to walk away when he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Master Daido, the monastery's abbot, known for his piercing insight and his unconventional teaching methods. "Taro," the master said gently, "show me how you wash your bowl." Taro felt embarrassed, but picked up his bowl and went through the motions again, scrubbing quickly, rinsing, setting it aside. Master Daido watched in silence, then said, "Now, watch me wash my bowl." The master took his simple clay bowl and held it for a moment, seeming to really see it. Then he began to wash it with complete attention. He felt the temperature of the water, adjusted it until it was just right. He took the washing cloth and cleaned every part of the bowl, inside and outside, moving slowly and thoroughly. He rinsed it carefully, checking to make sure no soap remained. He dried it with full attention, then placed it gently in its designated spot. The entire process took perhaps 3 minutes, but Master Daido had been completely present for every second. There was no hurry, no distraction, no sense that this was a chore to be gotten through. There was just a person washing a bowl with complete attention and care. "Tell me, Taro," the master asked, "what is the difference between how you washed your bowl and how I washed mine?" Taro thought carefully. "Master, you were more thorough. You took more time. You did a better job." "True," Master Daido said, "but that's not the essential difference. The difference is that when I washed my bowl, I was completely there. My full attention was on washing the bowl. When you washed your bowl, where were you?" Taro hung his head. "I was thinking about other things, Master. I was eager to get back to studying." The master's eyes were kind but penetrating. "And when you sit in meditation, where are you?" Taro paused, suddenly seeing something he had never noticed before. I'm often thinking about enlightenment, about whether I'm doing it right, about what I'll achieve." "Exactly," Master Daido said. "And when you study the sutras, where are you?" "I'm thinking about how to apply them, about what they mean for my practice." "About..." Taro's voice trailed off as realization began to dawn. "You are always somewhere else," the master said gently. "When you wash bowls, you're thinking about meditation. When you meditate, you're thinking about enlightenment. When you study, you're thinking about application. You are never fully present for what you're actually doing. You are always treating this moment as a stepping stone to some future moment when you imagine you'll finally be enlightened, finally be at peace." The master picked up Taro's bowl, which still had a bit of rice stuck to the side. "Tell me, Taro, what is the purpose of washing a bowl?" "To clean it." "Master, and what is the purpose of meditation?" Taro began to answer with a rehearsed response about achieving enlightenment, but the master stopped him. "No, Taro, not what you've read. What is the actual purpose of sitting meditation?" Taro struggled for an answer. Finally, he said, To be present? Yes, Master Daido said. To be fully present and aware. And what is the purpose of studying Dharma? To understand how to live with awareness and compassion? Yes. And tell me, can you be present and aware while washing a bowl? Taro felt something shift inside him. Yes. Master, can you practice compassion while washing a bowl? Can you develop concentration? Can you let go of self-centered thinking? Can you connect with the simple miracle of being alive? Yes, Master, Taro said, his voice soft with understanding. Master Daido smiled. Then tell me, how is washing a bowl different from meditation? How is washing a bowl different from studying Dharma? How is washing a bowl separate from the spiritual path? Taro stood in silence, feeling years of mistaken understanding beginning to crumble. He had created a false division in his mind, labeling some activities as spiritual practice and others as ordinary chores. He had believed that enlightenment would come from doing more of the spiritual activities and less of the ordinary ones. But he had completely missed the point. Master, Taro said quietly, I've been treating washing bowls as an obstacle to practice when it could be practice itself. Not could be, Master Daido corrected gently. Is. Everything is practice, Taro. Walking is practice. Eating is practice. Sleeping is practice. Working in the garden is practice. The question is not what you're doing, but how you're doing it. Are you present? Are you aware? Are you bringing your full attention to this moment? Or are you lost in thoughts about some other moment? The Master continued, You've been searching for enlightenment as if it's somewhere else, somewhere you'll arrive at if you meditate enough or study enough. But enlightenment is not a destination. It's not a state you achieve and then maintain forever. It's the quality of being fully present and awake, right here, right now, in whatever you're doing. It's washing a bowl with the same complete attention I just showed you. It's walking down the path, feeling each step. It's eating your meal, tasting each bite. It's being fully alive in this moment, instead of living in your head. Taro felt tears forming in his eyes. I've wasted so much time, Master. I've been here for 2 years, and I've missed it all. I was so focused on becoming enlightened that I wasn't actually living. Master Daido placed both hands on Taro's shoulders. You haven't wasted anything, Taro. This moment of recognition is exactly where you needed to arrive. But don't let this realization become another thing to achieve in the future. Don't start thinking, from now on, I'll be present. That's the same trap. Just be present now. Wash this bowl again, right now, with full attention. Let this moment be your practice. Taro took his bowl with both hands. This time, he really felt it. The weight, the smooth glaze, the slight warmth from the water. He turned on the water and felt it running over his hands. He noticed the temperature, the sound it made, the way it looked as it filled the bowl. He picked up the washing cloth and cleaned the bowl slowly, feeling the circular motion of his hand, noticing the soap bubbles forming, seeing the rice that had been stuck begin to loosen and wash away. He rinsed the bowl thoroughly, watching the clean water run over the clay, making sure every trace of soap was gone. He dried it carefully, feeling the texture of the drying cloth, seeing how the wet spots gradually disappeared. Then he placed the bowl in its spot with a sense of completion, of having done something fully and well. When he finished, Master Daido was smiling. How was that? Master, Taro said, his voice filled with wonder. I've never washed a bowl before. Not really. I've gone through the motions hundreds of times, but I was never actually there for it. This time, I was completely present, and it was perfect. Just washing a bowl was perfect. Yes, the Master said. This is the secret that is not a secret. The ordinary is extraordinary when you're fully present for it. The simple act of washing a bowl contains the entire Dharma. It contains impermanence. The dirty bowl becomes clean. The soap bubbles arise and vanish. It contains interconnection, the water, the bowl, your hands, your awareness, all working together. It contains the practice of letting go, releasing the dirt, releasing your thoughts about other things, releasing the idea that this moment is less important than some other moment. Master Daido gestured around the kitchen. Taro, some students come here thinking that the real teaching happens in the meditation hall or in private interviews with teachers, they think the work we do is just necessary maintenance. But I tell you truly, I have seen more students awaken while washing bowls, sweeping floors, and weeding gardens than I have seen awaken in the meditation hall. Do you know why? Taro shook his head. Because when you sit in meditation, your ego is invested in achieving something. You're trying to get enlightened, trying to have special experiences, trying to become someone who is awakened. This trying creates tension and separation. But when you wash a bowl, your ego doesn't care. It thinks this is beneath it, so it doesn't interfere as much. And in that moment of simply washing, with no agenda, no trying to become anything, awakening can happen naturally. The master laughed softly. The great irony of spiritual practice is that the more desperately we seek enlightenment, the more it eludes us. But when we simply attend to what's in front of us with full presence and care, enlightenment reveals itself. It was always here, in the washing of bowls, in the feeling of water on skin, in the simple miracle of being aware and alive. From that day forward, Taro's practice transformed. He still sat in meditation, still studied the sutras, but he no longer saw these as the real practice and everything else as secondary. He brought the same quality of attention to weeding the garden that he brought to meditation. He washed bowls with the same reverence he brought to chanting sutras. He swept floors as if sweeping was the most important thing in the world. And in bringing this full presence to ordinary activities, Taro discovered something that had eluded him during years of intensive seeking. He discovered peace. Not the dramatic, special peace he had imagined enlightenment would bring, but a simple, quiet peace that came from being fully present for his actual life, instead of constantly reaching for some imagined future state. Years later, when Taro became a teacher himself, students would often come to him asking about advanced meditation techniques or seeking profound teachings. Taro would smile and take them to the kitchen. "First," he would say, "show me how you wash your bowl." The story of washing bowls contains one of Zen Buddhism's most essential teachings, that practice and daily life are not separate, that the sacred and the ordinary are not different, and that awakening is found not in special experiences, but in bringing full presence to whatever we're doing. This teaching directly challenges the common misunderstanding that spiritual practice is something separate from regular life, something we do at specific times, in specific places. We might think that meditation is spiritual, but commuting to work is not, that attending a retreat is sacred, but doing laundry is mundane. This division is completely artificial and actually undermines genuine practice. The Zen master Dogen wrote, "To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." When Taro was rushing through washing bowls while thinking about enlightenment, he was studying concepts about the Buddha way, but not actually forgetting himself, not actually transcending his self-centered concern with achievement. But when he washed the bowl with complete presence, his self-consciousness dissolved. There was just washing, just awareness, just this moment. This is what's meant by practice realization in Zen Buddhism. Practice is not a means to some future realization. Practice itself is realization. When we wash a bowl with full presence, we are manifesting awakened awareness in that moment. We're not preparing for future awakening, we're expressing awakening right now. The Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh taught extensively about this integration of practice and daily life. He created the concept of mindful work and would often say, "While washing the dishes, one should only be washing the dishes," which means that while washing the dishes, one should be completely aware of the fact that one is washing the dishes. This isn't just about dishes. It's about bringing undivided attention to whatever task is before us. Modern psychology has begun to recognize what contemplative traditions have known for millennia. Research on flow states shows that people experience the deepest satisfaction and presence when they're fully absorbed in an activity. When there's no gap between the doer and the doing, no self-consciousness, just complete engagement with what is. This is available not just in special activities, but in any activity we bring full attention to. The story also reveals how our constant orientation toward the future undermines presence. Taro was always treating the present moment as a stepping stone to some future moment. While washing bowls, he was thinking about meditation. While meditating, He was thinking about enlightenment. This is the human condition, perpetually leaning forward into an imagined future, missing the only moment that actually exists, this one. The Buddha taught about right effort as part of the Eightfold Path. Many people misunderstand this as meaning we should try harder, do more, push ourselves further. But right effort is not about straining toward a future goal. It's about bringing balanced, appropriate energy to what we're doing right now. It's washing a bowl thoroughly and carefully without rushing, without cutting corners, but also without making it into a huge dramatic effort. It's simply doing what needs to be done with full attention and care. Master Daido's observation that students often awaken while doing ordinary tasks rather than in meditation is profound. When we sit down to meditate with the agenda of becoming enlightened, we create what Zen calls gaining mind, the mind that wants to get something, achieve something, become something. This gaining mind is itself the obstacle to awakening because it reinforces the sense of a separate self that lacks something and needs to acquire it. But when we wash a bowl just to wash a bowl, with no spiritual agenda, the gaining mind has nothing to grab onto. We're just here, just present, just washing. And in that simplicity, without trying, the sense of separation between self and activity can dissolve. There's just washing happening, awareness witnessing, no one doing it. This is what awakening feels like. Not dramatic or special, but simple and obvious, like finally seeing what was always right in front of us. The 13th century Christian mystic Meister Eckhart said something remarkably similar to Buddhist teachings. The outward work will never be puny if the inward work is great. When our inner quality is one of presence and awareness, every outward action becomes valuable and meaningful. When our inner quality is one of distraction and seeking, even apparently spiritual activities become hollow. In your own life, can you identify activities you rush through while thinking about something else? Can you notice how you categorize some activities as important and others as interruptions? What would change if you brought the same quality of attention to washing dishes that you bring to activities you consider meaningful? This isn't about making ordinary tasks into some big spiritual production. It's simpler than that. It's just doing one thing at a time with your full attention. When you're washing dishes, just wash dishes. Feel the water, see the bubbles, notice the clean dish. When you're walking, just walk. Feel your feet, sense your body moving through space, notice your surroundings. When you're talking with someone, just be there. Listen fully, respond genuinely. The Zen teacher Charlotte Joko Beck said, "The more we practice, the more we realize that all of life is our practice." There's no moment that's not an opportunity for presence, for awareness, for letting go of self-centered thinking. The question is never, when can I practice? The question is, am I practicing right now? Tonight, as you lie here, can you practice with the simple act of resting? Not straining toward sleep, not judging yourself for being awake, just being present for the experience of lying here, feeling your body, noticing your breath, aware of awareness itself. This moment of rest can be as much your practice as any formal meditation. The bowl you're washing right now is simply the bowl of this moment, and all it asks is your full presence. Let everything else go. You don't need to achieve anything or become anyone. Just be here, fully, completely. That's enough. That's everything. Our eighth story takes us to a small village during a time of great hardship, where a farmer was facing what appeared to be complete ruin. This is the story of the grateful farmer. There was once a farmer named Isamu who lived in a village that had fallen on difficult times. A severe drought had lasted for 3 years, and crops were failing across the entire region. Isamu's rice paddies, which had fed his family for generations, produced almost nothing. His vegetable garden withered despite his constant care. Even the few chickens he kept had stopped laying eggs regularly because there was barely enough grain to feed them. Isamu's neighbors were bitter and angry. They cursed the heavens, complained constantly about their misfortune, and spoke endlessly about how unfair life had become. Some became so consumed with resentment that they could no longer see any good in their lives at all. They sat around in the evenings listing their grievances, competing to see who had suffered most, feeding each other's despair. But Isamu was different. Despite facing the same drought, The same failing crops, the same uncertainty about how he would feed his family through the winter. He remained peaceful. More than peaceful, he seemed genuinely content, even joyful at times. His neighbors noticed this, and it bothered them. One evening, a group of villagers came to Isamu's small house. Their spokesperson, a man named Hiro, said with frustration, "Isamu, we don't understand you. Your crops are failing just like ours. You're facing the same hardship we all are. Yet you smile. You seem happy. What's wrong with you? Don't you understand how bad things are?" Isamu invited them to sit down. He poured them cups of weak tea, apologizing that it wasn't stronger, but even tea leaves had become precious during the drought. Then he said, "My friends, I understand exactly how bad things are. I know my rice paddies are dry. I know my storage bins will be nearly empty this winter. I know there are difficult times ahead, but tell me, does my suffering about these facts change them?" Hiro responded immediately, "Of course not. But suffering is the natural response to such hardship. How can you not suffer?" Isamu smiled gently. "I didn't say I don't feel pain or concern. I said I don't suffer. There's a difference. Let me explain. Every morning when I wake up, before I even open my eyes, I practice gratitude. I lie there and think of 10 things I'm grateful for. Would you like to hear what they were this morning?" The villagers looked at each other skeptically, but curiosity won out. "Yes," Hiro said. "Tell us what you could possibly be grateful for in times like these." "First," Isamu began, "I was grateful that I woke up at all. I'm alive. I have another day. Some people died during the night, but I have been given the gift of one more morning." Second, I was grateful for my breath. I could feel air moving in and out of my lungs, giving my body life. Third, I was grateful for my wife sleeping beside me. After 20 years together, we still have each other. The drought cannot take that away." He continued. "Fourth, I was grateful for the roof over my head. Yes, it leaks in one corner, but it provides shelter from the sun and what little rain we get. Fifth, I was grateful for my legs that can walk, my arms that can work, my eyes that can see the sunrise. Sixth, I was grateful for the well in our village. Yes, the water level is low, but there is still water. We are not dying of thirst. Seventh, I was grateful for my neighbors. Even when they come to criticize me," he said with a warm smile, "we're going through this hardship together. We help each other when we can." Eighth, I was grateful for the few vegetables that do grow in my garden. They're small and sparse, but they exist. Ninth, I was grateful for the memories I have of abundant harvests, which remind me that the drought will not last forever, that seasons change. And 10th, I was grateful for the difficulty itself, because it's teaching me what really matters, what can be taken away, and what cannot. The villagers sat in silence. Finally, one woman named Keiko spoke up, her voice softer than before. "But Isamu, gratitude doesn't fill your rice bins. Being thankful doesn't end the drought. Isn't your gratitude just pretending things aren't as bad as they are?" Isamu shook his head. "No, Keiko, I'm not pretending. I acknowledge fully that we're in drought, that we're facing hardship, but I'm choosing to also acknowledge everything that's still good, everything that the drought hasn't touched. Tell me, when you focus only on what's wrong, does your rice grow better?" "No," she admitted. "Does your happiness increase?" "No." "Does your sleep improve? Does your health strengthen? Do your relationships deepen?" "No, no, and no," Keiko said quietly. "Then what do you gain from focusing only on what's wrong?" Isamu asked gently. "You're experiencing the drought, and you're also experiencing the misery of focusing constantly on the drought. You're living through hardship, and you're adding to that hardship the weight of resentment and bitterness. I'm experiencing the same drought you are, but I'm not adding that extra layer of suffering. That's the only difference between us." Another villager, an elderly man named Osamu, spoke up. "But Isamu, doesn't gratitude in hard times feel like lying to yourself? How can you be genuinely grateful when things are genuinely bad?" Isamu considered this thoughtfully. "Osamu, let me ask you something. Is it true that you have eyes that can see?" Yes, of course. And is it true that you have a place to sleep tonight? Yes, a modest one, but yes. And is it true that you have people in this village who care about you? Yes, I suppose so. Then how is acknowledging these truths lying? The problem isn't that gratitude is dishonest. The problem is that focusing only on what's wrong is incomplete. It's seeing half the picture and calling it the whole truth. Yes, we're in drought. That's true. But it's also true that we're alive, that we can still love, that we still have each other, that beauty still exists. Gratitude doesn't deny the drought. It refuses to let the drought blind us to everything else. Hiro leaned forward. But Isamu, doesn't your gratitude make you passive? If you're content with what you have, won't you stop trying to improve your situation? Not at all, Isamu replied. I work my fields every day. I tend my garden. I repair my tools. I do everything I can to prepare for better times. But I do these things from a place of peace rather than desperation. From gratitude for what I can do rather than resentment about what I can't control. I've found that I actually work better, think more clearly, and solve problems more creatively when I'm not weighed down by bitterness. He paused, then continued. There's a story I heard once from a traveling monk. He said that two monks were imprisoned in a dark cell with only one small window near the ceiling. One monk stared at the muddy ground and saw only dirt and despair. The other looked up through the window and saw stars. Both were in the same cell, experiencing the same imprisonment. But one found beauty and hope, while the other found only misery. The question isn't which one was right about their situation. The question is, which one suffered more unnecessarily? Kiko wiped tears from her eyes. Isamu, I think I understand what you're saying, but I don't know how to do it. My mind goes immediately to what's wrong. How do you train yourself to see what's right? Isamu smiled warmly. That's exactly the right question, Keiko. It is training, like building strength in a muscle. Every morning, I practice gratitude. Some days it's easy. Other days, when I'm worried or discouraged, I have to search harder for things to appreciate. But I always find 10 things, even if some days they're very simple. I'm grateful for this cup of water. I'm grateful for the softness of my sleeping mat. I'm grateful that my hands still work. The practice is like digging a channel. At first, the water doesn't flow easily, but the more you dig, the more naturally the water runs in that direction. He continued. And throughout the day, whenever I notice my mind spiraling into complaint or worry, I stop and ask myself, what's good right now? What's working? What can I appreciate in this moment? Sometimes the answer is very small. The sun feels warm on my face. The breeze is pleasant. I can hear birds singing. But these small acknowledgements shift something inside me. They remind me that even in difficulty, life continues to offer gifts. Osamu nodded slowly. So you're saying that gratitude is a choice, a practice, not just a feeling that happens to us? Exactly, Isamu said. We've been taught that our emotions just happen to us, that we're victims of our feelings, but I've discovered that we have much more power than we think. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can influence how we relate to what happens. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools we have for shaping our experience of life. Another villager who had been silent spoke up. Isamu, I want to try this. Will you teach us your morning practice? Isamu's face lit up. Of course. It's very simple. Tomorrow morning, before you get out of bed, before you start thinking about your problems and responsibilities, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Then, slowly and deliberately, think of 10 things you're grateful for. They can be big or small. Some days you might be grateful for your health, your family, your home. Other days, you might be grateful for simpler things. A comfortable bed, the sound of rain, the fact that you slept through the night. The important thing is to really feel the gratitude, not just think the words. Let yourself actually experience appreciation, he added. And if you want to deepen the practice, you can also do it at night before sleep. Reflect on your day and find 10 things from that day to be grateful for. Maybe someone smiled at you. Maybe you had a moment of laughter. Maybe you solved a problem or helped someone. This practice bookends your day with gratitude, and gradually, it begins to reshape how you see everything in between. Over the following weeks, something remarkable happened in the village. Many of the villagers began practicing Isamu's gratitude exercise. Not all of them. Some remained convinced that gratitude was foolish in hard times, but enough that a shift became noticeable. Those who practiced gratitude began to change. Their faces seemed lighter. They complained less. They helped each other more. They found creative solutions to problems because their minds weren't consumed with resentment. They slept better at night because they went to bed acknowledging what had gone right rather than ruminating on what had gone wrong. The drought didn't end immediately. Hardship continued, but the villagers who practiced gratitude suffered less. They faced the same external circumstances, but experienced them differently. They had discovered what Isamu knew, that we cannot always control our circumstances, but we always have some control over our relationship to those circumstances. When the drought finally did end, almost a year later, something interesting was revealed. Isamu's farm hadn't produced any more rice than anyone else's during those difficult years. He hadn't been magically protected from hardship, but he had remained at peace through it all, while many of his neighbors had made themselves miserable. Same circumstances, completely different experience. Years later, when people asked Isamu about that difficult time, he would say, "The drought was hard, but it taught me something invaluable. It taught me that happiness isn't found in perfect circumstances. It's found in perfect vision. The ability to see clearly what is. All of it. Both the difficulty and the gift. Both the loss and what remains. Gratitude is that perfect vision. It's seeing the whole truth, not just the painful parts." The story of the grateful farmer teaches us about one of the most transformative practices available to human beings: the deliberate cultivation of gratitude. Modern psychology has extensively studied gratitude and found that it's one of the most reliable paths to well-being, improved relationships, better sleep, reduced depression and anxiety, and even better physical health. But Buddhism understood this long before modern science confirmed it. The Buddha taught about mudita, often translated as sympathetic joy or appreciative joy. This is the quality of mind that can recognize and rejoice in what's good, both in our own lives and in the lives of others. It's the opposite of the comparing, complaining mind that can only see what's lacking. The grateful farmer's question to his neighbors, "Does suffering about these facts change them?" points to a crucial distinction in Buddhist psychology between pain and suffering. Pain is the inevitable first arrow of difficult circumstances. Suffering is the second arrow we shoot at ourselves through our mental and emotional reactions to those circumstances. The drought was painful for everyone. Crops failing, uncertainty about the future, physical hardship, these are genuine difficulties. But the neighbors who focused exclusively on what was wrong added layers of suffering through their resentment, bitterness, and constant complaint. They experienced the pain of the drought and the suffering of their relationship to the drought. Isamu experienced the pain, but not the additional suffering. This is what the Buddha meant when he taught that while pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. We cannot prevent all pain, but we have tremendous influence over how much we suffer. The practice Isamu describes, naming 10 things to be grateful for each morning and evening, is remarkably similar to what psychologists now call a gratitude journal. Research has shown that people who regularly record what they're grateful for experience measurable improvements in happiness, health, relationships, and even immune function. But why does such a simple practice have such powerful effects? It works by retraining attention. Our minds have a negativity bias, an evolutionary tendency to focus on threats, problems, and what's wrong. This bias helped our ancestors survive, but in modern life, it often makes us miserable. We can be surrounded by good things, but our attention automatically gravitates toward the one thing that's not working. Gratitude practice deliberately redirects attention. It trains the mind to notice what's right, what's working, what's good. Over time, this creates new neural pathways. The mind begins to automatically notice positive aspects of experience, not because we're wearing rose-colored glasses, but because we're finally seeing the whole picture instead of just the threatening or problematic parts. Isamu's insight that gratitude doesn't deny difficulty but refuses to let difficulty obscure everything else is profoundly important. This isn't toxic positivity, the harmful pressure to always be happy and deny genuine pain. Isamu fully acknowledged the drought. He didn't pretend things were fine when they weren't, but he also refused to pretend that the drought was the only truth about his life. This balanced perspective is what Buddhism calls the middle way. Not the extreme of denying problems and pretending everything is wonderful, and not the extreme of catastrophizing and seeing everything as terrible. It's the middle path of seeing clearly, both the difficulty and the gift, both what's broken and what remains whole. The villager's question about whether gratitude makes us passive is important. Some people fear that if they accept and appreciate what they have, they'll lose motivation to improve their circumstances. But research shows the opposite is true. People who practice gratitude actually tend to be more proactive, more creative in problem solving, and more resilient in facing challenges. This makes sense when we understand how the mind works. When we're consumed with resentment and complaint, our mental energy is tied up in resistance. We're fighting reality, and that fight exhausts us. But when we accept what is, while appreciating what we have, we free up enormous energy that can be directed toward constructive action. Isamu worked his fields every day, but from a place of peace rather than desperation. This is the Buddhist principle of right effort, balanced energy directed skillfully. When we work from gratitude, we can fully engage without the distortion of desperate grasping or resentful resistance. The story Isamu tells about the two monks in prison looking at either mud or stars is a classic teaching found in many wisdom traditions. It illustrates that our experience of life is determined not just by our circumstances, but by where we place our attention. Both monks were imprisoned, but one found beauty and the other found only misery. This doesn't mean circumstances don't matter. They do. But it reveals that within any set of circumstances, there's usually both difficulty and grace, both loss and gift. What we focus on expands in our experience. If we focus exclusively on what's wrong, our entire experience becomes colored by that focus. If we deliberately notice what's right, we discover resources, beauty, and meaning we might otherwise have missed. The practice of gratitude that Isamu teaches is accessible to anyone. You don't need special training or equipment. You don't need perfect circumstances. You just need willingness to notice what's good, what's working, what you can appreciate. Tonight, before you drift into sleep, can you practice this? Can you think of 10 things from today that you're grateful for? They don't have to be dramatic. Maybe you're grateful for a moment of laughter, for food you ate, for a comfortable bed, for the ability to rest, for someone who was kind to you, for your breath continuing to flow, for the miracle of consciousness that allows you to be aware of this moment. As you name each thing silently in your mind, let yourself actually feel the appreciation. Don't just think the words. Let gratitude become an experience in your body, a warmth in your chest, a softness in your face, a sense of abundance despite any difficulties you're facing. This practice won't make your problems disappear, but it will change your relationship to them. It will reveal that even in difficulty, you're surrounded by gifts. Even in loss, much remains. Even in the drought of whatever challenges you face, there are stars visible if you remember to look up. Let gratitude be the last thing you experience before sleep tonight. And perhaps, like Isamu, let it be the first thing you experience when you wake tomorrow. In this way, you'll begin to reshape your experience of life itself. Not by changing your circumstances, but by seeing them more completely. Rest now in appreciation for this moment, for your breath, for your beating heart, for the miracle of being alive and aware. Everything else may change, but this fundamental gift remains. Our ninth story takes us to a Zen monastery where an ambitious young student was about to learn a surprising lesson about the nature of achievement. This is the story of the Master's Garden. Akiko was known throughout the monastery as the most dedicated student. She was the first to wake each morning, often arriving at the meditation hall before the wake-up bell. She sat longer than anyone else, studied harder, asked more questions, and threw herself into every practice with intense determination. Her goal was clear. She wanted to become enlightened. and she wanted it to happen as quickly as possible. The monastery had a beautiful garden that required constant care. It was customary for students to spend several hours each week working in the garden, planting, weeding, watering, and maintaining the paths. Most students enjoyed this work as a peaceful break from intensive study and meditation, but Akiko saw it differently. To Akiko, time in the garden was time away from real practice. She would rush through her gardening duties, working as quickly as possible to get back to meditation. She would weed frantically, barely looking at what she was doing, her mind already on the koan she was working with or the Dharma talk she wanted to review. One spring morning, Akiko was assigned to work in the garden with Master Hana, an elderly nun who had lived at the monastery for over 50 years. Master Hana was responsible for the garden and was famous for the peace and beauty she brought to everything she touched. Students loved working with her because her presence was so calm and joyful. Akiko, however, was not pleased with the assignment. She wanted to spend the morning in intensive meditation, and working in the garden felt like a waste of precious time. She arrived at the garden with barely concealed frustration, ready to complete her duties as quickly as possible. Master Hana was already there, kneeling beside a bed of young plants, her weathered hands gently working the soil. She looked up and smiled warmly at Akiko. "Good morning, dear one. Thank you for joining me today. We'll be planting these seedlings and tending to the spring vegetables." Akiko bowed respectfully but said, "Master Hana, I was hoping to spend extra time in meditation this morning. How long will this work take?" Master Hana's eyes twinkled. "How long? Well, that depends. If you're here in body but your mind is elsewhere, it will feel like forever and accomplish little. If you're truly present, time disappears and the work completes itself. Come, sit with me." Akiko knelt beside the master, trying to hide her impatience. Master Hana handed her a small seedling, its roots wrapped carefully in soil. "This is a tomato plant. Feel how delicate it is. See how the leaves are just beginning to unfold. When you plant it, you're not just putting it in the ground. You're participating in a miracle, helping life continue, connecting yourself to the ancient cycle of growth and nourishment." Master Hana dug a small hole with her hands, moving slowly and deliberately. "Feel the soil," she said. "Notice its texture, its coolness, its rich smell. This soil contains the remains of last year's plants, minerals from ancient rocks, countless microorganisms working to create fertility. When you touch the soil, you touch the history of the earth itself." She placed the seedling gently in the hole and carefully filled soil around it. "See how we create a small depression around the plant to hold water? We're thinking ahead, preparing for the plant's needs. We're practicing foresight and care." She patted the soil gently around the base. Not too firm, not too loose. The plant needs support but also room to breathe. Balance in all things. Akiko watched, feeling something shift inside her. She had planted hundreds of seedlings before, but she had never really paid attention. She had treated it as a mechanical task to complete as quickly as possible. Master Hana was showing her that planting a single seedling with full attention contained an entire world of meaning. "Now you try," Master Hana said, handing Akiko another seedling. Akiko took the small plant and, for the first time, really looked at it. She noticed the delicate hairs on the stem, the way the leaves curled slightly at the edges, the small roots searching for soil. She dug the hole slowly, feeling the earth give way beneath her fingers. She placed the seedling with care, adjusted it so it stood straight, filled in the soil, created the water depression, patted it gently. The entire process took perhaps 2 minutes, but she was completely present for every second. "Beautiful," Master Hana said softly. "See how different that felt when you were truly here for it." They worked together in silence for a while, planting seedlings. Akiko found herself moving slower, paying attention to each plant, each movement of her hands, each sensation. The frantic urgency she had felt began to dissolve, replaced by something she could only describe as peace. After some time, Master Hana spoke again. "Akiko, why did you come to this monastery?" "To attain enlightenment, Master." "And why do you want enlightenment?" Akiko paused, considering. "So I can be free from suffering. So I can find lasting peace and help others." Master Hana nodded. A good intention. Now tell me, in this moment, as you plant this seedling with full attention, are you suffering? Akiko realized with surprise that she wasn't. The constant mental chatter about her spiritual progress, the comparing herself to other students, the anxiety about whether she was practicing correctly, all of it had quieted. No, Master, I'm not suffering right now. And do you feel peace? Yes, Akiko said, wonder in her voice. I do feel peace. Then tell me, what is the difference between this moment and the enlightenment you're seeking? Akiko's hands stopped moving. She sat very still, feeling something profound trying to emerge in her understanding. I don't know, Master. The difference, Master Hana said gently, is that enlightenment exists in your imagination as something to achieve in the future, while peace is available right here in the present. You've been so busy seeking enlightenment that you've been overlooking the very thing you're seeking. Master Hana picked up a watering can and began to water the seedlings they had just planted. Watch how the water soaks into the soil, she said. See how the earth darkens as it receives the moisture. This is nourishment, sustenance, life continuing. When you water with full presence, you're not just completing a task. You're participating in the great web of interdependence, offering yourself in service to life. She turned to look at Akiko with deep compassion. You rush through gardening to get back to meditation, believing that sitting on a cushion is spiritual practice while working with plants is not. But I ask you, where is the division? When you sit in meditation with your mind full of ambition and self-judgment, is that spiritual practice? When you plant a seedling with complete presence and care, is that not spiritual practice? Akiko felt tears beginning to form. Master, I've been treating the garden as an obstacle to my practice. But it is practice, isn't it? Everything is practice, dear one. Or nothing is, depending on your presence. The Buddha didn't gain enlightenment by trying to achieve enlightenment. He gained it by finally giving up the struggle and simply sitting with what is. The great irony of the spiritual path is that what we seek through striving is only found through surrender, through being fully present, rather than constantly becoming. Master Hana gestured to the garden around them. Look at these plants. Do they try to grow? Do they struggle and strain and worry about whether they're growing correctly? No. They simply receive the sun, the water, the nutrients from the soil, and growing happens naturally. They don't achieve growth through effort. They allow growth through receptivity. She continued, You are like a plant, Akiko. You already contain everything you need for awakening. It's your nature, just as growing is the plant's nature. But you cannot force it to happen through sheer determination any more than you can force a seedling to grow by pulling on it. What you can do is create the conditions. Presence is the sunlight. Acceptance is the water. Letting go of self-judgment is the fertile soil. When these conditions are present, awakening unfolds naturally. Akiko wiped her eyes. But Master, aren't we supposed to make effort? Doesn't the Buddha teach about right effort as part of the path? Yes, Master Hana said, but understand what right effort means. It doesn't mean straining and forcing. It means balanced, appropriate energy directed wisely. Watch how I pull this weed. She grasped a weed growing among the vegetables and removed it with a smooth, steady motion. Not too gentle, or it won't come out. Not too harsh, or it tears, and the root remains. Just the right amount of energy, applied at the right angle, at the right time. This is right effort, she added. The effort you've been making has not been right effort. It's been desperate effort, ambitious effort, self-centered effort, driven by the idea that you are lacking something and must acquire it. This kind of effort actually prevents awakening because it reinforces the very delusion you're trying to overcome. The delusion that there is a separate self that lacks enlightenment and must gain it. Master Hana stood and stretched, then walked over to a rose bush beginning to bloom. Come, look at this. Akiko joined her, and they stood together looking at a rose just beginning to open, its petals still tightly furled but showing hints of deep red. This rose is perfect exactly as it is. It's not trying to be more open. It's not judging itself for not being in full bloom yet. It's simply being exactly what it is in this moment. And in being fully what it is, it naturally unfolds into what it will become. You are like this rose, Akiko. Right now, in this moment, you are perfect exactly as you are. Not perfect meaning without room to grow, but perfect meaning complete, whole, lacking nothing essential. When you can accept this, when you can be fully present with yourself exactly as you are, without the constant pressure to be different or better or more enlightened, then natural unfolding happens. Wisdom develops not through force, but through allowing. They return to planting seedlings. Akiko noticed that her whole relationship to the activity had transformed. An hour ago, this had felt like wasted time. Now, she couldn't imagine anywhere she'd rather be. The simple act of placing a small plant in the earth felt profound, meaningful, complete. Master Hana began to hum softly as she worked, a gentle melody that seemed to blend with the sounds of birds in the trees and wind in the leaves. Akiko found herself humming along, and they worked together in harmonious silence, broken only by this shared sound. After some time, Master Hana said, "I'll tell you a secret, Akiko. I've been practicing Zen for 52 years. For the first 20 years, I was just like you, rushing through everything, trying so hard to get enlightened. I was miserable. I was always comparing myself to others, always judging my progress, always feeling like I was failing. Then one day, a day very much like this one, I was working in this very garden with my own teacher. She told me something that changed everything." Akiko leaned in, eager to hear. "What did she tell you, Master?" She said, "Hana, what if you're already enlightened and you just haven't noticed?" At first, I thought she was mocking me. I protested that I still had anger, still had desires, still had confusion. How could I be enlightened? But she said, "Enlightenment isn't the absence of human experience. It's the recognition of what's present beneath and within all experience. The awareness that witnesses everything without being disturbed by anything. That awareness is always here. It's your true nature. You don't need to create it or achieve it. You just need to recognize it." Master Hana pulled another weed, examined it for a moment, then tossed it in the compost bucket. In that moment, I understood. I had been searching for something I already had. I had been trying to become something I already was. It was like spending your whole life searching for your glasses while they're on your head. The seeking itself was preventing the finding. "So what did you do?" Akiko asked. "I stopped seeking," Master Hana said simply. "I stopped trying to get enlightened and started just being present. I stopped measuring my progress and started appreciating each moment. I stopped comparing myself to others and started accepting myself. And paradoxically, when I stopped trying to achieve awakening, awakening revealed itself. It had been there all along, hidden by my desperate seeking." She smiled at Akiko. "This doesn't mean I stopped practicing. I still meditate every day. I still study the teachings. I still work to cultivate compassion and wisdom. But I do these things from a different place. Not from lack, not from desperation to become something I'm not, but from fullness, from appreciation, from the joy of expressing what I already am." Akiko sat back on her heels, looking at the rows of newly planted seedlings, feeling something fundamental shifting in her understanding. "Master Hana, I think I've been making my spiritual practice into another form of achievement, another way to prove my worth, another thing to accomplish and check off a list." "Yes," Master Hana said with great kindness. "And this is natural. We live in a world that teaches us that we are only valuable when we're achieving, producing, becoming more. We bring this conditioning into our spiritual practice without realizing it. We turn even enlightenment into another achievement to pursue, another way to prove we're good enough." She placed both hands on Akiko's shoulders and looked into her eyes. "Dear one, you are already good enough. You are already whole. You are already home. The peace you seek is not at the end of some long journey of achievement. It's here, available in this moment. In the simple act of planting a seedling, in the feeling of soil on your hands, in the sound of birds singing, in the breath flowing in and out of your body. Can I tell you what real practice is?" Master Hana continued. "Real practice is learning to recognize the sacredness of the ordinary. It's bringing full presence to washing dishes, to walking down a path, to planting a garden. It's meeting each moment with openness, instead of constantly leaning toward the next moment. It's being where you are, instead of always wishing you were somewhere else. Master Hana stood and helped Akiko to her feet. Come, let's water these plants one more time, and then we'll sit together in meditation. But I want you to bring the same presence you just discovered in gardening into your sitting. Don't sit to achieve enlightenment. Sit to be fully present. Don't sit to become someone different. Sit to be completely yourself, exactly as you are. This is the secret. They watered the plants together, and Akiko felt each moment as a complete experience, not as a stepping stone to somewhere else. When they finally sat down on cushions under the shade of a large maple tree, Akiko's meditation was different than it had ever been before. She wasn't trying to have special experiences or reach altered states. She wasn't judging whether she was doing it right. She was simply present, aware, allowing everything to be exactly as it was. And in that allowing, she touched something she had been seeking for years. Not a dramatic experience or mystical vision, but a simple recognition. The peace she had been seeking was the peace of this moment, fully received. The enlightenment she had been chasing was the awareness that was already witnessing her chase. She didn't need to become anything she wasn't. She only needed to recognize what she already was. When the meditation period ended and they opened their eyes, Akiko looked at Master Hana with tears of gratitude. Thank you, Master. Today you showed me that the garden is not separate from the meditation hall, that planting is not separate from practice, that this ordinary moment is not separate from enlightenment. Master Hana smiled. Now, you're beginning to see. Keep seeing this way. Don't let this moment of recognition become another memory to cling to. Instead, let it inform how you meet each new moment. Enlightenment is not a destination you reach and then maintain. It's a way of being present that you practice moment by moment, in the garden and in the meditation hall, in activity and in stillness, in joy and in difficulty. From that day forward, Akiko's practice transformed. She no longer rushed through daily tasks to get to real practice. She discovered that every moment was real practice when met with full presence. She found as much wisdom in planting seeds as in studying sutras, as much peace in washing vegetables as in sitting meditation. Years later, when students came to her seeking the fastest path to enlightenment, she would smile and take them to the garden. First, she would say, "Let me show you how to plant a seedling." And in that simple teaching, she would pass on the wisdom that Master Hana had given her, that the extraordinary is hidden in the ordinary, that presence is the path, and that what we seek is always already here. The story of the Master's Garden reveals one of the most paradoxical teachings in Buddhism, that spiritual attainment often happens when we stop trying to attain. This teaching appears throughout Buddhist literature, from the Buddha's own story of gaining enlightenment after abandoning extreme asceticism to countless Zen stories of students awakening when they finally give up their desperate seeking. The Buddha himself demonstrated this principle. For 6 years, he practiced extreme austerities, pushing his body to the edge of death, believing that enlightenment required conquering the body and transcending physical existence. But enlightenment didn't come. It was only when he abandoned this extreme approach, accepted food from a village girl, and sat under the Bodhi tree with the simple intention to be present, that awakening occurred. This teaching is so counterintuitive to our achievement-oriented minds that most of us have to learn it through direct experience, as Akiko did. We're conditioned from childhood to believe that success comes through trying harder, pushing further, never giving up. These strategies work for many worldly goals. If you want to build a business or master a skill, persistent effort pays off. But spiritual awakening operates by different principles. The very effort to achieve it reinforces the illusion of a separate self that lacks something and must acquire it. This reinforcement is precisely what prevents awakening, which is essentially the recognition that the separate self is an illusion, that we already are what we think we must become. Master Hana's comparison to a plant is profound. Plants don't grow through effort, they grow through receptivity. They receive sunlight, water, and nutrients, and growing happens naturally as their expression of their inherent nature. Similarly, awakening isn't something we do or achieve. It's our nature revealing itself when the conditions are right. What are those conditions? According to Buddhist teaching, they include presence, acceptance, letting go of self-judgment, and meeting each moment fully rather than constantly reaching for the next moment. These aren't things we do in order to get enlightenment. They are themselves the expression of awakened awareness. This is what Master Hana meant when she said, "Enlightenment isn't the absence of human experience. It's the recognition of what's present beneath and within all experience." We imagine enlightenment as some special state where we no longer feel difficult emotions, where we have perfect peace at all times, where we're somehow beyond the human condition. But this is fantasy. True awakening is recognizing the awareness that witnesses all experience, pleasant and unpleasant, joyful and sorrowful, peaceful and turbulent. This awareness is never disturbed by what it witnesses, just as a mirror is never changed by what it reflects, or the sky is never stained by the clouds that pass through it. When Akiko was frantically trying to achieve enlightenment, she couldn't recognize this awareness because she was identified with her seeking, caught up in the drama of trying to become someone different. But when she planted seedlings with full presence, the seeking mind quieted, and the awareness that had been there all along became noticeable. This is the secret Master Hana's teacher shared. What if you're already enlightened and you just haven't noticed? This isn't a trick or a riddle. It's pointing to the fact that the awareness reading these words right now, the consciousness that witnesses your thoughts and experiences, is already enlightened. It's already free, already peaceful, already complete. It has never been damaged by your mistakes, never been diminished by your failures, never been made impure by your difficulties. The only thing preventing you from recognizing this is your identification with the thinking mind, with the voice in your head that constantly judges, compares, seeks, and tries to become something different. When that mental activity quiets, even temporarily, the ever-present awareness becomes obvious. Akiko's transformation from rushing through tasks to meeting each moment fully illustrates a key Buddhist teaching, that the sacred and the mundane are not different. Zen master Layman Pang wrote, "How wondrous, how mysterious. I carry fuel, I draw water." The extraordinary nature of ordinary activities becomes apparent when we're fully present for them. In Zen Buddhism, this is sometimes called just this. Just washing dishes, just walking, just sitting, just breathing. Not doing these things to achieve something else, not performing them as means to an end, but being fully present for the activity itself as complete and sufficient. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, can you bring this quality of just this to the experience of resting? Not trying to fall asleep, not judging whether you're relaxing correctly, not measuring your progress toward unconsciousness, but simply being present for the experience of lying here, breathing, aware. Can you recognize that this moment doesn't need to be different to be okay? That you don't need to achieve some special state to be at peace? That the awareness witnessing this very moment is already free, already whole, already home? Like the seedlings in Master Hana's garden, you don't need to force yourself to grow or transform. You only need to receive this moment fully, to be present for what is, and let your inherent nature express itself naturally. Rest in that recognition now. You are already what you seek to become. You are already home. Our 10th story takes us to the edge of a vast forest where a merchant was about to learn a profound lesson about the burdens we carry. This is the story of the heavy stone. There was once a successful merchant named Takeshi who traveled frequently between villages buying and selling goods. He had built a prosperous business over many years and was known for his sharp mind and strong work ethic. But despite his success, Takeshi carried a heavy burden that weighed on him constantly. 20 years earlier, when Takeshi was just beginning his business, he had made a serious mistake. He had trusted a business partner who betrayed him, stealing a large sum of money and leaving Takeshi deeply in debt. It had taken Takeshi years of hard work to recover financially from this betrayal, but while he had recovered the money, he had never recovered his peace of mind. Every day, multiple times a day, Takeshi would think about that betrayal. He would replay the events in his mind, thinking about what he should have seen, what he could have done differently, how foolish he had been to trust someone who proved unworthy. He would imagine confronting his former partner, rehearsing speeches he would never give, fantasizing about revenge he would never take. This mental burden affected everything. It made Takeshi suspicious of new business partners, even trustworthy ones. It made him bitter and cynical. It disturbed his sleep and stole his joy. He had recovered financially, but he remained imprisoned by the past. One day, Takeshi was traveling through an unfamiliar region and found himself on a road that entered a dense forest just as evening was approaching. He knew it would be unwise to travel through the forest at night, so he began looking for a place to stay. Soon he came upon a small temple nestled at the forest's edge. Takeshi approached the temple and met the abbot, an elderly monk named Jiro, who welcomed him warmly. "Please, stay the night," Jiro said. "We have simple food and a clean place to sleep. You're welcome to join us." Grateful, Takeshi accepted. That evening, after a simple meal of rice and vegetables, Takeshi sat with Abbot Jiro on the temple porch, watching the last light fade from the sky. The peaceful atmosphere of the temple began to work on Takeshi, and before he quite realized what he was doing, he found himself telling the abbot about the betrayal that had happened 20 years ago, about how it still haunted him, about how he couldn't seem to let it go. Abbot Jiro listened with complete attention, nodding occasionally but not interrupting. When Takeshi finished, the abbot sat in silence for a moment, then stood up. "Come with me," he said. "I want to show you something." Takeshi followed the abbot to a large stone near the edge of the temple garden. It was a boulder, perhaps the size of a large watermelon, clearly very heavy. "Pick up this stone," the abbot said. Confused but compliant, Takeshi bent down and lifted the stone. It was indeed very heavy, and he struggled to hold it. "Now," the abbot said, "carry it around the temple garden. I'll walk with you." Takeshi, growing more confused but trusting there was a purpose, began to walk around the garden path carrying the heavy stone. His arms began to ache almost immediately. The abbot walked beside him in silence, seemingly in no hurry. They walked once around the garden. Takeshi's arms were burning now, his breathing labored. "Abbot," he said, "this stone is very heavy. How long must I carry it?" "How long have you been carrying the betrayal?" Jiro asked gently. 20 years, Takeshi said. "Then carry the stone for 20 more steps," the abbot said. Takeshi continued walking, counting steps, his arms shaking with effort. After 20 steps, he stopped. "May I put it down now? Can you put down the betrayal?" the abbot asked. Takeshi stared at him, beginning to understand. I don't know how. "It's very simple," Jiro said. "Open your hands." Takeshi looked down at the stone in his aching arms. Open his hands? But then he would drop the stone. That was the point, he realized. He opened his hands, and the stone fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Immediately, his arms felt light, free, relieved of the burden. "You see," Abbot Jiro said softly, "the stone is heavy only while you hold it. The moment you open your hands, the burden is gone. The betrayal you experienced 20 years ago is the same. It happened. It was painful. Those are facts. But the weight you carry from it, the constant replaying in your mind, the bitterness, the resentment, that weight exists only because you continue to hold it. You can put it down anytime you choose." Takeshi flexed his aching arms, feeling the relief of being unburdened. "But Abbot, the betrayal was real. The person who wronged me never apologized, never made it right. How can I just let it go when there was no justice?" The abbot gestured to the stone lying on the ground. "Tell me, does that stone care whether you pick it up again? Does it demand that you carry it? Does it force itself into your hands?" "No," Takeshi said. "Of course not. Then why do you keep picking up the betrayal? Who is forcing you to carry it day after day, year after year? The person who wronged you is not here. They are not making you remember. They are not forcing you to replay those events in your mind. You are choosing to pick up that stone every single day, multiple times a day, and carry it around. And then you wonder why your arms ache, why your spirit is heavy." Takeshi felt something cracking open inside him, a hardness that had been there so long he had forgotten it wasn't natural. "Are you saying I should just forget what happened? Pretend it didn't matter?" No, Jiro said, sitting down on a nearby bench and inviting Takeshi to join him. I'm not asking you to forget or to pretend it didn't happen. The betrayal happened. It was painful. It taught you something about the need for discernment in choosing business partners. These are all facts, and they remain facts whether you carry resentment or not. He continued, what I'm asking is whether you want to continue punishing yourself for something someone else did 20 years ago. Because that's what you're doing. The person who betrayed you has moved on with their life. They're probably not thinking about you at all. But you give them power over you every single day. You let that old event poison your present moment, disturb your peace, corrupt your relationships. You're choosing to remain in a prison where the door has been open for 20 years. Takeshi felt tears beginning to form. But how do I stop? I've been carrying this so long, I don't know how to not carry it. Abbot Jiro smiled with great compassion. You've already shown yourself how. You opened your hands and let the stone drop. Letting go is exactly that simple. Not easy perhaps, but simple. Every time the memory arises, every time you start to replay the betrayal in your mind, you have a choice. You can pick up the stone again and carry it, or you can notice that you're about to pick it up and choose not to. But the thoughts come automatically, Takeshi protested. I don't choose to think about it. The memories just appear. Yes, the abbot agreed. First thoughts often arise automatically. You cannot control that. But what you do with those thoughts, whether you engage with them, follow them, build elaborate stories around them, that is your choice. When the memory arises, you can notice it. Ah, there's that old memory again. And let it pass like a cloud across the sky. Or you can grab onto it, dive into it, rehearse the whole drama again. One path is freedom, the other is choosing to pick up the stone. The abbot stood and walked over to the stone. He placed his foot on it. I'll tell you something else. Often we think we're holding on to resentment because the other person deserves our anger, because the injustice demands our ongoing outrage. But look deeper. Ask yourself honestly, what are you getting from holding on to this? What need does it fulfill? Takeshi was puzzled. What do I get from it? Nothing. It makes me miserable. Does it? Jiro asked gently. Or does it perhaps give you something to blame for any unhappiness in your life? Does it give you a story about why you can't trust people, why you have to stay guarded, why intimacy is dangerous? Does it protect you from vulnerability by giving you a justified reason to keep others at a distance? Does it give you an identity, a narrative about yourself as someone who was wronged, someone who has a right to be bitter? Takeshi sat in stunned silence. The abbot's words had struck something true and uncomfortable. He realized that he had built part of his identity around this betrayal. It had become his explanation for why he was the way he was. Suspicious, guarded, distant. If he let it go, who would he be? I see you're beginning to understand, Jiro said softly. We often cling to our resentments not because we have to, but because they serve some purpose, even if that purpose ultimately makes us unhappy. They give us something to hold on to, an explanation, an excuse, an identity. Letting go means losing that, and loss is frightening, even when what we're losing is our suffering. The abbot sat back down beside Takeshi. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. We usually think of attachment to pleasant things, attachment to wealth, pleasure, status, but we also become attached to our pain, to our stories of victimhood, to our resentments and grievances. These attachments are just as binding as attachment to pleasure, sometimes more so. So what do I do? Takeshi asked, his voice raw with emotion. You practice letting go, Jiro said simply. Not once, but again and again. Every time you notice yourself picking up the stone of resentment, you practice putting it down. You might pick it up 100 times a day at first. That's fine. Each time, you notice, and you choose to put it down. Gradually, the habit weakens. The stone becomes less attractive. You pick it up less often. And one day, you might realize you haven't thought about the betrayal in weeks, months. The memory will still be there if you look for it, but it will have lost its power to disturb your peace. But is that fair? Takeshi asked. Shouldn't there be consequences for people who betray others? Perhaps there should, the abbot said. Perhaps there are consequences we can't see, karmic consequences, or the simple consequence of being someone who betrays trust and must live with that truth about themselves. But those consequences are not your responsibility to carry. Your responsibility is to your own peace, your own freedom, your own life. You cannot hurt the person who wronged you by carrying resentment. You can only hurt yourself. Abbot Jiro picked up the stone and handed it to Takeshi. Try something for me. Hold this stone again. Takeshi took it, feeling the familiar weight. Now, the abbot said, tell me about the betrayal while you're holding the stone. Describe what happened. As Takeshi began to recount the story, his arms started to ache again. His shoulders tensed, his jaw tightened. He could feel his whole body responding to the weight of the stone and the weight of the memory simultaneously. Now put the stone down and tell me something good that's happened in the last 20 years, the abbot said. Takeshi set down the stone and thought for a moment. His body immediately relaxed. Well, I built a successful business. I have loyal employees. I have enough wealth to be comfortable and help others. How does your body feel right now compared to a moment ago? The abbot asked. Takeshi noticed the difference immediately. Lighter, relaxed, open. This is what I want you to understand viscerally, not just intellectually, Jiro said. The resentment you carry is a physical burden, not just a mental one. It lives in your body, creates tension, disturbs your health, affects your energy. Every time you rehearse the betrayal, you're not just thinking thoughts. You're creating stress hormones, tightening muscles, disrupting your nervous system. You're literally poisoning yourself with these repeated thoughts. The abbot continued. There's a saying, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You've been drinking poison for 20 years, Takeshi. Isn't it time to put down the cup? Takeshi sat for a long time in silence, feeling the truth of these words settling into him. Finally, he spoke. I'm ready to let it go, Abbot, but I'm afraid this resentment has been with me so long. I don't know who I'll be without it. You'll be free, Jiro said gently. You'll be yourself without the burden. You'll be lighter, more open, more capable of joy. You'll be able to trust again, to connect with others without the wall of bitterness between you and them. You'll be able to sleep peacefully. You'll be present for your actual life instead of being trapped in a 20-year-old memory. He placed his hand on Takeshi's shoulder. And you'll learn something important. That you are not your story. You are not the betrayal that happened to you. You are not your resentment. You are the awareness that witnesses all of these things, the consciousness that remains untouched by events. When you let go of identification with your story, you discover your true nature, which is vast, open, and free. That night, Takeshi slept more deeply than he had in years. When he woke before dawn, he lay in the quiet darkness and felt something different. The familiar weight that usually settled on him the moment he woke, the immediate replay of old grievances, was lighter. Not gone completely, but noticeably lighter. Over breakfast, Abbot Jiro gave Takeshi one final teaching. When you leave here today and return to your life, the habit of resentment will try to reassert itself. This is natural. You've trained your mind in this pattern for 20 years. It won't disappear overnight. But now you have a practice. Every time you notice yourself picking up the stone, remember this night. Remember how heavy it felt in your arms. Remember how free you felt when you put it down, and make the choice again. Hold the stone or let it drop. I will, Abbot. Thank you. Takeshi bowed deeply. One more thing, Jiro said. Consider this. The person who betrayed you gave you an unexpected gift. They showed you that you could survive betrayal, that you could rebuild, that you were stronger than you knew. They also gave you this opportunity, right now, to learn about forgiveness, about letting go, about freedom. None of this excuses what they did, but it allows you to find meaning in the pain, to transform poison into medicine. Takeshi left the temple that morning with a lighter heart. The journey of letting go would take time. For weeks, months, he would notice himself reaching for the stone of resentment, and each time he would remember the abbot's teaching, and choose to put it down. Some days were easier than others. Some days he would carry the stone for hours before remembering he had a choice. But gradually, the burden lightened. The automatic replay of old hurts began to fade. He found himself sleeping better, laughing more easily, trusting more freely. He discovered that he had more energy for his business, more warmth for his employees, more openness to new relationships. And years later, when people who knew him commented on how much he had changed, how much lighter and more joyful he seemed, Takeshi would tell them about the night he carried a stone around a temple garden and learned that the weight we carry is often a weight we choose. The story of the heavy stone teaches us about one of the most liberating practices in Buddhist teaching, the practice of letting go. The Buddha included letting go, or relinquishment, as essential to the path of liberation. He taught that clinging, whether to pleasure or to pain, to what we want or to what we resent, is the fundamental cause of suffering. We understand easily that clinging to pleasant experiences creates suffering when they end. We grasp at happiness, at youth, at success, and suffer when these inevitably change. But what's less obvious is that we also cling to painful experiences, to old hurts, to resentments and grievances. We replay them, rehearse them, build our identities around them, and this clinging creates ongoing suffering long after the original event has passed. Takeshi's betrayal happened once, 20 years ago. It was painful when it occurred. That was the first arrow. But he shot second arrows at himself thousands of times by constantly reliving it, by carrying it as a burden day after day. The original event was over in the past, but he kept it alive through his attention to it. The abbot's teaching about the stone is simple and profound. The stone is heavy only while we hold it. Our resentments, grudges, and old hurts have weight only because we continue to carry them, and we can put them down anytime we choose by simply opening our hands, by withdrawing our attention and identification from these old stories. This doesn't mean the events didn't happen or didn't matter. Takeshi was genuinely betrayed, that's a fact. But facts don't carry emotional weight on their own. We give them weight through how we relate to them, through the stories we tell about them, through our continued identification with them. The abbot's question about what Takeshi was getting from holding on to resentment is particularly insightful. We often don't realize that our suffering serves purposes. Resentment can provide an identity, an explanation for our difficulties, a justification for keeping others at a distance, a protection against vulnerability. When we understand what our suffering is protecting us from, we can address those needs more directly and healthily. Buddhist psychology recognizes this in the teaching about the near enemy of virtues. The near enemy of equanimity is indifference. The near enemy of compassion is pity. And the near enemy of letting go is suppression. True letting go isn't pushing away or pretending something didn't happen. It's fully acknowledging what happened while releasing our grip on it, allowing it to be in the past where it belongs, rather than dragging it into every present moment. The physical aspect of resentment that Abbot Jiro points out is confirmed by modern neuroscience and psychophysiology. When we replay painful memories or rehearse grievances, our bodies respond as if the event is happening now. Stress hormones release, muscles tense, heart rate increases, immune function decreases. Chronic resentment literally makes us sick, contributes to heart disease, weakens immunity, and disturbs sleep. The saying, "Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die," captures this perfectly. Our resentment doesn't hurt the person who wronged us. They might be completely unaware of our ongoing anger, but it definitely hurts us, poisoning our peace, our health, our relationships, our ability to be present for our lives. The practice Abbot Jiro teaches, noticing when we're picking up the stone and choosing to put it down, is the essence of mindfulness applied to emotional habits. We can't always control whether resentful thoughts arise. The mind has been trained in certain patterns, and those patterns activate automatically. But we absolutely can control whether we engage with those thoughts, follow them, build elaborate stories around them. When a resentful thought arises, we have a choice point. We can notice it. There's that old story again, and let it pass like a cloud across the sky. Or we can grab onto it, dive into it, rehearse the whole drama, and pick up the stone again. One path leads to freedom, the other leads to suffering we create for ourselves. The Buddha taught about forgiveness not as something we do for the person who harmed us, but as something we do for ourselves. Forgiveness is the ultimate act of letting go. It's recognizing that continuing to carry resentment hurts us far more than it hurts the other person, and choosing our own peace over our attachment to being right about how we were wronged. This doesn't mean condoning harmful actions or maintaining relationships with people who continue to harm us. We can set firm boundaries, protect ourselves, and hold people accountable while still releasing the emotional poison of resentment. Forgiveness and boundaries are not opposites. They work together to create both safety and peace. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, what stones are you carrying? What old hurts, resentments, or grievances are you rehearsing in your mind? Can you feel the weight of them in your body? The tension they create, the energy they drain. Can you imagine setting these stones down just for tonight? Not forever, if that feels too difficult, but just for the next few hours while you sleep. What would it feel like to go to sleep without the weight of old hurts? What would it be like to let your body and mind rest without the burden of resentment? You don't have to figure out forgiveness or completely resolve everything tonight. You just have to be willing to open your hands and let the stones drop for now. You can always pick them up again tomorrow if you want to. But for tonight, let yourself be free. Let yourself be light. Let yourself rest unburdened. Notice how it feels to simply let go. Notice the space that opens up when you're not carrying these heavy stones. Notice the peace that was always available beneath the burden. Rest now in that peace. You deserve to be free. Our 11th story takes us to a bustling marketplace where a wise teacher was about to demonstrate a profound truth about the nature of generosity. This is the story of the beggar's gift. In a large town known for its wealthy merchants and prosperous trade, there lived a renowned spiritual teacher named Master Koji. He was respected throughout the region for his wisdom and compassion, and people from far and wide would come to hear his teachings. The town's wealthy merchants often invited him to their homes, offering elaborate meals and generous donations to support his temple. One day, Master Koji was walking through the marketplace when he noticed a beggar sitting by the side of the road. The man was elderly, thin, and dressed in tattered rags. In front of him was a small wooden bowl containing only a few copper coins. As people passed by, most ignored him completely. A few dropped a coin or two into his bowl, but no one stopped to speak with him. Master Koji approached the beggar and sat down beside him on the dusty ground. The beggar looked up in surprise. People rarely sat with beggars, especially not someone dressed in the clean robes of a respected teacher. "Good morning, friend," Master Koji said warmly. "How are you today?" The beggar, whose name was Shin, was taken aback by this kindness. "I am well enough, Master. Better now that you've greeted me. Most people look through me as if I don't exist." They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, watching the flow of people through the marketplace. Then Shin said, "Master, I have heard of your wisdom. May I ask you a question?" "Of course," Koji replied. "I see wealthy merchants give you gold and invite you to fine meals. They make offerings to your temple. Everyone speaks of their generosity. But I have nothing to give. I am a poor man with nothing but these few coins, barely enough to buy food for today. Does this mean I can never practice true generosity? Is giving only for the wealthy?" Master Koji smiled gently. "Shin, generosity has nothing to do with the amount given. It has everything to do with the heart that gives. Let me tell you something. Last week, a wealthy merchant gave my temple a donation of 1,000 gold coins. It was indeed generous, and we are grateful. But do you know what percentage of his wealth those 1,000 coins represented?" Shin shook his head. "Less than 1%, Koji said. "He is so wealthy that giving 1,000 coins caused him no sacrifice whatsoever. He didn't have to consider what he would give up to make that donation. His life continued exactly as before." The master paused, then continued. "Yesterday, a widow came to the temple. She was quite poor, working hard just to feed her children. Yet she brought 2 small coins and placed them in the offering box. These 2 coins were all she had left after buying rice for her family. She gave everything she could spare, knowing it would mean she would eat less this week. Tell me, Shin, Whose gift was greater? Shin thought for a moment. The widow's gift, master, even though it was much smaller in amount. Yes, Koji said, because true generosity is not measured by the size of the gift, but by the sacrifice it represents and the spirit in which it's given. The merchant gave from his abundance without sacrifice. The widow gave from her scarcity with great sacrifice. Her 2 coins contained more love, more faith, more generosity than his 1,000. Shin looked down at his small bowl of coins. But master, I don't even have 2 coins to spare. I need every coin I collect just to survive. How can I practice generosity? Master Koji looked at the beggar with eyes full of compassion. Shin, you've already been generous today. When I sat down beside you, did you complain that I was taking up space where another coin giver might stand? Did you tell me to leave? Of course not, master. Your company is a gift to me. Exactly, Koji said. You gave me your space, your time, and your presence. These are forms of generosity. Generosity isn't only about money or material goods. You can be generous with your attention, with a kind word, with a smile, with your willingness to listen. These gifts cost nothing in terms of money, yet they can be invaluable to the recipient. Shin's eyes widened slightly as he began to understand. Master Koji continued, I'll tell you a secret about generosity, Shin. The purest form of giving is when we give without any expectation of return, without any thought of what we'll receive in exchange, without even the subtle hope that our giving will make us feel good about ourselves. This is called dana in the Buddhist tradition, pure generosity, untainted by self-interest. The master gestured toward the marketplace. Many of the wealthy merchants who give to my temple do so partly for recognition, partly to improve their reputation, partly because it makes them feel virtuous. There's nothing terribly wrong with this, and we're still grateful for their support. But their giving is mixed with self-interest. The greatest generosity comes from those who have so little that giving provides no social benefit, no recognition, no reputation boost. They give simply from love, from compassion, from the joy of giving itself. As they sat there, a young woman passed by carrying a heavy basket of vegetables. She stumbled slightly, and several vegetables rolled into the street. She looked distressed, trying to gather them while holding the basket. Without hesitation, Shin rose and helped her collect the vegetables, placing them back in her basket. Thank you so much, she said gratefully. You're very kind. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a coin to give to Shin, but he held up his hand. No need, sister. I'm happy I could help. After she left, Shin sat back down, and Master Koji was smiling broadly. Do you see what just happened? You gave generously without even realizing it. You gave your effort, your help, your kindness, and when she offered payment, you refused it, making your gift pure and complete. This is beautiful dana. Shin looked surprised. But master, that was nothing. Anyone would have helped her, would they? Koji asked, gesturing to the dozens of people who had walked past without stopping. You have less than anyone in this marketplace. You need every coin you can get. Yet you helped without thought of reward and refused payment when offered. You, dear Shin, are a teacher of generosity. Over the next hour, as they continued to sit together, Master Koji pointed out several other acts of generosity that Shin performed without even noticing. When a child dropped a toy near them, Shin picked it up and handed it back with a warm smile. When an elderly person walked by looking tired, Shin offered words of encouragement. When a merchant dropped some goods, Shin called out to alert him. Each of these small acts was a form of generosity, given freely without expectation. Shin, Master Koji finally said, I want to teach you about the 3 types of giving in Buddhism. The first is material giving, sharing our possessions, food, money, or belongings. The second is the giving of fearlessness, helping others feel safe, protected, or comforted. The third, and in some ways the most profound, is the giving of dharma, sharing wisdom, truth, or teaching that helps others find freedom from suffering. He continued, you may have little material wealth to give, but you can give fearlessness through your kind presence, through your willingness to see and acknowledge others when society makes them invisible. You can give Dharma by sharing the wisdom you've gained from your own difficult experiences, and you can give the gift of your full attention, which in our distracted world is becoming increasingly rare and precious. Shin was quiet for a moment, absorbing this teaching. Then he said, "Master, I've spent so much of my life feeling ashamed of having nothing to give, feeling like I'm only a receiver, a burden on others. But you're showing me that I have always had gifts to offer." "Yes," Koji said gently, "and I'll tell you something else. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give is allowing others to give to us. When you receive a coin or a piece of bread with genuine gratitude, you're giving the giver the opportunity to practice generosity, to experience the joy of helping another human being. Your humble receiving is itself a form of giving." Just then, a wealthy merchant named Hideo approached. He was one of the town's most prosperous traders, known for his large donations to the temple. When he saw Master Koji sitting with the beggar, he looked somewhat shocked. "Master Koji," Hideo said, bowing respectfully, "I've been looking for you. I wanted to discuss the new building we're funding for the temple." He glanced at Shin with barely concealed disdain. "Surely we could speak somewhere more appropriate?" Master Koji remained seated. "Hideo, please join us. I'd like you to meet my friend Shin. He has been teaching me about true generosity." Hideo looked confused, but sat down reluctantly, clearly uncomfortable on the dusty ground in his fine robes. "The beggar has been teaching you? But Master, I thought you were the teacher." "We are all teachers and all students," Koji said. "Wisdom can come from anywhere." Shin has just demonstrated several acts of pure generosity, giving without any expectation of return or recognition. This is the essence of dana. Hideo frowned. "But Master, surely the value of a gift is measured by its worth? I've given thousands of gold coins to the temple. This man has given nothing of value." Shin looked down, embarrassed, but Master Koji spoke firmly. "Hideo, tell me, when you give your gold coins, do you feel sacrifice? Do you go without something you need?" "Well, no," Hideo admitted. "I have more than enough." "And do you give anonymously, or do you want your name on the building you're funding?" Hideo shifted uncomfortably. "I suppose I would like some recognition, yes. I've worked hard for my wealth. There's honesty in that," Koji said without judgment. "But understand this. When you give from your abundance while seeking recognition, it's a transaction. You give gold and receive reputation and the pleasure of feeling virtuous. There's nothing wrong with this, but it's not the highest form of generosity." The master turned to Shin. This morning, Shin gave his space, his time, his help to multiple people without any thought of what he would receive. He gave from his poverty, not from his abundance. He gave anonymously to people who will never know his name. He gave without any expectation that his giving would improve his situation. This is pure dana, untainted by self-interest. Hideo sat in silence, looking at Shin with new eyes. Finally, he spoke, his voice softer. "I think I understand, Master. I've been proud of my generosity, but I've never truly given sacrificially. My giving has cost me nothing." Master Koji nodded. "There's a teaching in Buddhism about the paramita of generosity, dana paramita. It's not about the amount given, but about giving with a heart free from attachment, free from pride, free from expectation. The greatest generosity flows from a heart that gives simply because it's the nature of an awakened heart to give, like the sun gives light or a spring gives water, without calculation or condition." He looked at both men. "Hideo, your wealth gives you the opportunity to help many people. This is a wonderful gift, but I encourage you to sometimes give in ways that cost you something, that require sacrifice, that no one will ever know about. And give with a heart that seeks nothing in return, not even the pleasure of feeling generous." Turning to Shin, he said, "And you, my friend, continue to give as you've been giving. Your small kindnesses, your attention, your willingness to help, these are treasures. Never believe that you have nothing to offer. The gift of your humanity, your compassion, your presence, these are beyond price." Something shifted in that moment. Hideo reached into his robe and pulled out a purse of coins, but instead of handing it to Shin with the usual distance of charity, he looked directly into the beggar's eyes and said, "Shin, Would you accept this gift? I give it not from my surplus, but from my heart, with no expectation of anything in return. I give it to honor the teaching you've given me today." Shin received the purse with both hands and tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Hideo. I receive this with deep gratitude, knowing that in accepting, I give you the opportunity to practice generosity in a new way." Master Koji smiled. "Do you see what just happened? Both of you gave, and both of you received." Hideo gave material support from a place of humility and genuine connection. Shin received with grace and gave the gift of allowing Hideo to serve. This is the true circulation of generosity, not a one-way transaction but a mutual recognition of our shared humanity and interconnection. From that day forward, both Shin and Hideo were changed. Shin never again felt ashamed of his poverty, recognizing that he had abundant gifts to offer the world through his kindness, presence, and willingness to help. He became known in the marketplace not as a beggar, but as a friend to everyone, someone who always had a kind word, a helping hand, or an attentive ear. Hideo began to give differently. While he still supported the temple and helped fund projects, he also started giving anonymously, helping people in ways they would never trace back to him. He gave his time, his attention, his knowledge. He sat with people he previously would have overlooked, and he found, to his surprise, that this new way of giving brought him far more joy than the public recognition ever had. Years later, people would speak of the day when a beggar taught a wealthy merchant about generosity, guided by a wise master who recognized that wisdom can come from anywhere and that true wealth is measured not in gold, but in the openness of our hearts. The story of the beggar's gift illuminates the Buddhist teaching of dana, generosity, which is the first of the 6 paramitas, or perfections practiced by bodhisattvas on the path to awakening. In Buddhist understanding, generosity is not merely a moral virtue, but a fundamental practice that loosens the grip of self-centeredness and opens us to the interconnected nature of reality. The Buddha taught 3 types of generosity that Master Koji described: material giving, the giving of fearlessness, and the giving of dharma. But what makes giving truly generous is not what we give, but the spirit in which we give it. The highest form of generosity is what Buddhists call pure dana, giving without the 3 poisons of attachment. Attachment to the giver, pride in being generous; attachment to the receiver, seeking gratitude or recognition; and attachment to the gift itself, concern about its value or how it will be used. This teaching directly challenges the worldly understanding of generosity, which measures giving by monetary value. In the world's economy, the merchant who gives 1,000 gold coins is more generous than the widow who gives 2 copper coins. But in the spiritual economy the Buddha describes, the widow's gift is infinitely more valuable because it represents true sacrifice and pure intention. This same teaching appears in many spiritual traditions. In Christianity, Jesus praised the widow's 2 coins above the wealthy men's large donations, saying she gave more because she gave all she had. The principle is universal. The value of a gift is determined not by its market price, but by what it costs the giver and the purity of intention behind it. Modern psychology has begun to study generosity and discovered something that Buddhism has taught for millennia. Giving makes us happier than receiving, but only when the giving is motivated by genuine care rather than obligation or the desire for recognition. Research shows that when people give anonymously or give in ways that require personal sacrifice, they experience deeper satisfaction than when they give to receive recognition or tax benefits. Shin's initial belief that he had nothing to give reflects a common misconception that generosity requires material wealth. But as Master Koji showed him, we all have gifts to offer, regardless of our financial circumstances. We can give attention in a distracted world. We can give kindness in a harsh environment. We can give recognition to those whom society overlooks. We can give encouragement, patience, presence, and time. The teaching about receiving as a form of giving is particularly profound. In our culture, we often see receiving as passive or inferior to giving. We want to be self-sufficient, to be givers rather than receivers. But this perspective creates separation and prevents the natural circulation of generosity. When we receive with genuine gratitude, we honor the giver, validate their generosity, and complete the circle of giving. This is why the Buddha taught that both the giver and receiver benefit from generosity. The giver loosens attachment to possessions and ego, experiences the joy of helping others, and creates positive karma. The receiver experiences care and support, has the opportunity to practice gratitude, and learns how to give by being given to. Neither role is superior. Both are necessary for generosity to flow. Master Koji's teaching about anonymous giving addresses the subtle ego attachment that can corrupt generosity. When we give publicly and receive recognition, we're engaging in an exchange. Material support for social status and good feelings about ourselves. There's nothing inherently wrong with this, but it's not the highest form of generosity because it's mixed with self-interest. The Talmud speaks of 8 levels of charity, with the highest being to give anonymously to someone who doesn't know who gave to them. Buddhist teaching agrees. When we give without anyone knowing, when we help without recognition, when we give with absolutely no expectation of return or reward, we practice the purest form of dana. We give simply because an open heart gives, like a flower releases fragrance without asking who will smell it. The transformation of both Shin and Hideo illustrates another aspect of generosity. It transforms both giver and receiver. Shin discovered dignity and purpose in recognizing he had gifts to offer. Hideo discovered the deeper joy of giving from connection rather than from pride. Both became more fully human through practicing generosity in new ways. In your own life, what gifts do you have to offer that have nothing to do with money? Can you give your full attention to someone who needs to be heard? Can you offer encouragement to someone who is struggling? Can you give patience when someone is difficult? Can you offer a smile, a kind word, a moment of recognition to someone usually overlooked? And when others give to you, can you receive with genuine gratitude, recognizing that graceful receiving is itself a gift? Can you let go of the need to immediately reciprocate, to even the score, to maintain independence? Can you trust the natural flow of generosity, knowing that what you receive with gratitude will naturally flow through you to others in unexpected ways? Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, reflect on the generosity that has supported your life today. The people who grew your food, who built your home, who created the conditions for your safety and comfort, the invisible kindnesses that surround you constantly. Let yourself feel genuine gratitude for these gifts. And consider, what might you give tomorrow that costs nothing in money but everything in presence and care? What small kindness might you offer that no one will know came from you? How might you practice pure dana, generosity untainted by the desire for recognition or return? Rest now with an open heart, knowing that you are held in a vast web of generosity, receiving from countless sources and having countless opportunities to give. You are both blessed and a blessing. Rest in that truth. Our 12th story takes us to a sacred mountain where a seeker was learning that the journey itself contains the destination. This is the story of the pathless path. There was once a dedicated spiritual seeker named Kaito who had heard stories of a legendary master living in a cave high on a sacred mountain. This master, it was said, had achieved complete enlightenment and could teach the direct path to liberation. Determined to receive this teaching, Kaito set out on the difficult journey up the mountain. The path was steep and treacherous. It took Kaito 3 full days of climbing to reach the cave where the master lived. His feet were blistered, his body exhausted, but his determination never wavered. When he finally reached the cave entrance, he called out respectfully, "Master, I have come seeking the path to enlightenment. Please teach me." A voice from within the cave responded, "Enter, seeker." Kaito entered the dimly lit cave and found an ancient monk sitting in meditation. The master opened his eyes and regarded Kaito with a penetrating gaze. "You seek the path to enlightenment?" "Yes, master," Kaito said eagerly. "I've traveled far and endured much hardship to reach you. Please show me the way." The master was silent for a long moment, then said something completely unexpected. "There is no path." Kaito felt confusion and disappointment wash over him. No path. "But master, the Buddha taught the Eightfold Path. Countless masters have described the way. How can you say there is no path?" The master smiled slightly. "Tell me, Kaito, when you climbed this mountain, Did you follow a path? Yes, of course. There's a trail that winds up the mountainside. And where is that path now? Kaito looked back toward the cave entrance, confused by the question. It's behind me. On the mountain. Exactly, the master said. The path is behind you. You are here. The path was useful for getting here. But now that you've arrived, the path is irrelevant. You don't bring the path with you. You don't sit here thinking about the path. You've let it go because it served its purpose. The master continued. Spiritual teachings are the same. They are like the path up the mountain, useful for getting somewhere, but not the destination itself. Many seekers make the mistake of clinging to the path, collecting teachings, memorizing scriptures, performing practices, all while missing the simple truth that is already here. But Master, Kaito protested, if there's no path, how can anyone find enlightenment? How did you become enlightened? The ancient monk laughed, a sound like wind chimes. Who said I'm enlightened? Did I make that claim? You came here with an assumption based on stories others told you. But let me ask you this. What is enlightenment? Can you define it? Kaito thought carefully. Enlightenment is awakening to ultimate truth. It's freedom from suffering. It's seeing reality as it truly is. And are you seeing reality right now? The master asked. I suppose so. I'm seeing you, this cave, hearing your words. Then you're already experiencing what you seek, the master said. You're already aware. You're already conscious. The seeing is happening. The only question is whether you recognize what's always been here, or whether you're lost in concepts about what enlightenment should be like. Kaito felt both frustrated and intrigued. Master, I don't understand. If I'm already enlightened, why do I suffer? Why do I feel confused and lost? The master said, his eyes twinkling. Now you're asking the right question. You suffer not because you lack enlightenment, but because you believe you lack it. You feel confused, not because you are confused, but because you're convinced you should understand something you don't yet understand. Your seeking itself creates the sense of separation from what you seek. The master gestured for Kaito to sit down. Let me tell you something. Birds don't take courses on how to fly. Fish don't study swimming. They simply express their nature. A bird flies because that's what birds do. In the same way, awareness is your nature. Consciousness is what you are. You don't need to achieve it or attain it. You need to stop overlooking it. But how do I stop overlooking it? Kaito asked. The master smiled. You just did. In the moment you asked that question, you were completely present, completely aware. That awareness, that presence, that's it. That's what you're seeking. The problem is, you're looking for something more special, more dramatic, more different from this ordinary awareness. But enlightenment isn't a special state. It's recognizing the extraordinary nature of what's already ordinarily here. The master picked up a cup of water and took a sip. When I drink water, I'm completely drinking water. There's no separation between me and the drinking. When I sit, I'm completely sitting. When I breathe, I'm completely breathing. This complete presence, this undivided awareness, this is what some call enlightenment. But it's not something I achieved. It's simply what remains when I stop dividing my experience, when I stop thinking about drinking while drinking, stop thinking about sitting while sitting. Kaito sat in silence, trying to grasp this teaching. The master continued. The Buddha taught many paths, many practices, many techniques. These are useful for most people because the mind needs something to do, somewhere to direct its attention. The practices are like the path up this mountain. They serve a purpose. But eventually, you must let go of the path itself. There's a famous Zen teaching, the master said. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Do you understand what this means? That enlightenment doesn't change what we do, Kaito guessed. Exactly. The activities of life continue. What changes is the relationship to them. Before awakening, we chop wood while thinking about something else, wishing we were doing something more spiritual. After awakening, we chop wood completely, fully present for the chopping. We carry water and are completely the carrying of water. This complete presence is enlightenment. The master stood and walked to the cave entrance, gazing out at the mountain landscape. Kaito, why did you come here? What did you hope to gain? I wanted to find peace, Kaito said honestly. I wanted to end my suffering, to find lasting happiness, to understand the meaning of life. And right now, in this moment, are you at peace? Kaito paused and noticed that, indeed, he felt peaceful. The urgency and seeking had temporarily quieted. Yes, actually, I am peaceful right now. Then you have what you came for, the master said simply. The question is whether you can recognize that peace doesn't depend on being in a cave with a master. It doesn't depend on having special knowledge or achieving a special state. It's available in every moment. When you stop seeking it and simply allow yourself to be present. But when I leave here and return to my life with all its problems and stresses, won't the peace disappear? Kaito asked. The circumstances will change, the master acknowledged. Challenges will arise, difficulties will continue. But peace doesn't depend on circumstances being perfect. It depends on your willingness to be present with whatever is, rather than constantly wishing reality were different. The master returned to his seat. Let me tell you about the pathless path. It's called pathless because there's nowhere to go. You're already here. There's no distant destination to reach. There's no future moment when you'll finally arrive. There's only this moment, and then this moment, and then this moment. Each one complete in itself. The path is pathless because you cannot follow someone else's footsteps. The Buddha's path was his. My path is mine. Your path is yours. Yes, we can learn from teachers and teachings. We can be inspired by those who've walked before us. But ultimately, your awakening must be your own direct recognition, not an imitation of someone else's realization. The master's voice became very gentle. And the path is pathless because what you seek is not separate from the seeker. You are looking for yourself. You are searching for awareness, using awareness. You are seeking the seeker. It's like the eye trying to see itself or the sword trying to cut itself. The looking itself is what you're looking for. Kaito felt something shifting in his understanding, like a knot beginning to loosen. Master, are you saying that all my years of practice, all the teachings I've studied, all the effort I've made, were unnecessary? No, the master said firmly. They brought you here. They brought you to this moment of questioning, this openness to hearing something beyond what you already believe. The path is necessary until it's not. The practices are essential until you recognize what they point to. Then, like a raft used to cross a river, they can be released. The Buddha himself taught this, the master continued. He said his teachings are like a raft for crossing over, not for holding onto once you've reached the other shore. Many practitioners make the mistake of clinging to the raft, even on dry land, proud of how well they maintain it, how much they know about it, forgetting that its purpose was to carry them somewhere, not to become an identity. The master leaned forward. Kaito, I'll tell you the ultimate secret. There is no enlightened person. Enlightenment is the end of the illusion of a separate person who could be enlightened or unenlightened. As long as you think of yourself as a person who lacks enlightenment and is trying to achieve it, you're trapped in duality, in separation. When the illusion of the separate self is seen through, there's no one left to be enlightened or not enlightened. There's just this, just presence, just awareness, just life living itself. Kaito's mind struggled with this teaching. It was so different from everything he had believed about the spiritual path. But Master, if there's no person who is sitting here listening to you, who climbed the mountain, who seeks enlightenment, that's the beautiful paradox, the Master said with a laugh. Relatively speaking, there is a person named Kaito with a history, a body, thoughts, and feelings. On that level, practices make sense, seeking makes sense, the path makes sense. But ultimately, when you look for this person, what do you find? You find sensations, thoughts, perceptions, awareness, but no solid, permanent entity you can call me. The person is a useful fiction, a way of organizing experience, but not an ultimate truth. Living from this understanding doesn't mean you stop functioning as a person, the master explained. You still have a name, a body, preferences, responsibilities. But you no longer believe that these define what you ultimately are. You recognize yourself as the awareness in which the person appears, the consciousness in which all experience unfolds. This recognition is freedom. The master stood again and walked over to a small altar in the corner of the cave. He picked up a stick of incense and lit it. "Watch this smoke," he said. "See how it rises, takes temporary forms, and then dissolves. Where does the smoke come from? Where does it go? Can you point to a moment when it begins or ends?" Kaito watched the smoke, mesmerized by its dancing patterns. "It seems to arise from the incense and dissolve into the air." "Yes," the master said. "And you are like this smoke. You arise from the universe, take temporary form, and will dissolve back into the universe. There's no separate entity that exists independent of everything else. You are a wave in the ocean, temporarily distinct but never separate from the water itself. This is the teaching of non-self, anatta in Pali," the master continued. "When you deeply realize that there's no separate self to protect, defend, or promote, tremendous freedom arises. The burden of constantly maintaining and improving a self-image dissolves. The anxiety about whether you're good enough, enlightened enough, successful enough disappears." Kaito sat in silence, feeling something he couldn't quite name. It wasn't the dramatic enlightenment experience he had expected, but it was something quieter, more subtle, more ordinary, and somehow more profound. It was like he was seeing the obvious for the first time. "Master," he finally said, "I think I'm beginning to understand. The peace I was seeking was always here, but I was too busy seeking to notice it. The enlightenment I was trying to achieve is actually just being fully present for life as it is. The path that would take me there doesn't exist because there's nowhere to go." The master bowed deeply to Kaito. "Now you are teaching me." "Yes, exactly so. The seeker and the sought are not two. The path and the destination are not separate. Each step is complete in itself. Each moment is the arrival." "But Master," Kaito asked, "what should I do now? Should I stop practicing? Should I abandon my meditation, my study?" "Do whatever serves your awakening to this moment," the master said. "If meditation helps you be present, meditate. If it becomes a mechanical habit that takes you away from presence, don't. If study opens your understanding, study. If it becomes a collection of concepts that obscure direct experience, stop. There's no rule except the invitation to be fully here, fully alive, fully aware in each moment." The master walked Kaito to the cave entrance. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors. "Look at this sunset," the master said. "Is it trying to be beautiful? Is it following a path to achieve beauty? Or is it simply being itself, completely? And beauty happens naturally. It's just being itself," Kaito said, awed by the display of colors. "Yes, be like the sunset. Don't try to be enlightened. Don't try to be spiritual. Don't try to be anything other than what you are right now. In that complete being, without effort or pretense, your true nature reveals itself." As Kaito prepared to descend the mountain the next morning, the master gave him one final teaching. "Kaito, when you return to your village, people may ask what you learned here. Don't try to explain this teaching with words. They won't understand, and you'll only create confusion. Instead, simply be present. Simply live from this recognition. Let your life be the teaching. And remember this, the pathless path doesn't end. You don't arrive and then stop. Every moment is both the path and the destination. Every experience is an opportunity to be fully present. Every challenge is an invitation to recognize what remains unchanging beneath the changing circumstances. You are not walking toward enlightenment. You are enlightenment walking." Kaito bowed deeply, tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Master. I came seeking a path and you showed me I never left home." The master smiled. "Now you understand why they call it the pathless path. Safe journey, friend. But remember, there's nowhere you need to go." As Kaito descended the mountain, he noticed something extraordinary. Each step felt complete in itself. He wasn't walking to get somewhere. He was simply walking. The path beneath his feet wasn't taking him away from the master's teaching. The path was the teaching. Each rock, each tree, each breath was the entire Dharma expressing itself. When he reached his village days later, people asked what he had learned from the great master. Kaito simply smiled and said, "I learned that I was already home." Some thought he had wasted his journey. Others sensed something in his presence, a peace and wholeness that hadn't been there before. Kaito didn't become a teacher or start a spiritual school. He simply lived his life with full presence. When he worked completely. When he rested completely. When joy arose, he experienced it fully. When sadness came, he allowed it completely. He had discovered the pathless path, which is simply this moment, exactly as it is, fully received and fully lived. The story of the pathless path points to one of the most profound and paradoxical teachings in Buddhism, that what we seek is not something to be attained, but something to be recognized as already present. This teaching appears in various forms across Buddhist traditions, from Zen's emphasis on sudden awakening to Dzogchen's teaching of primordial awareness. The master's statement that there is no path isn't a rejection of practice or teaching. Rather, it's pointing beyond practice and teaching to what they indicate. All spiritual practices are fingers pointing at the moon, as the Buddha said. Many people become so focused on the finger that they never see the moon. They collect practices, accumulate knowledge, measure their progress, all while missing the simple truth that awareness is already present, already functioning, already what they are. This is why the master asks Kaito, "Are you seeing reality right now?" The seeing is happening. Awareness is present. The question isn't how to create or achieve awareness, but how to recognize it and stop overlooking it in our search for something more special or dramatic. The teaching that you suffer not because you lack enlightenment, but because you believe you lack it, is revolutionary. It suggests that our sense of spiritual inadequacy, our feeling that we're not enlightened enough, not awakened enough, not spiritual enough, is itself the primary obstacle. This seeking energy, this constant reaching for something we don't have, creates the very sense of separation and lack that we're trying to overcome. When the master describes complete presence, "When I drink water, I'm completely drinking water," he's pointing to what Zen calls just this. This isn't a special state, requiring years of training. It's available in every moment. The difference between someone who is awakened and someone who is not isn't in their essential nature, but in their recognition and embodiment of that nature. The famous teaching before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, reveals that awakening doesn't transport us to some other realm or fundamentally change what we do. What changes is the quality of presence we bring to our activities. We stop doing one thing while thinking about another. We stop treating the present moment as a stepping stone to some future moment. We simply chop wood when chopping wood, carry water when carrying water. The master's teaching about the pathless path being pathless because you cannot follow someone else's footsteps is crucial. We can learn from teachers, be inspired by their examples, study their teachings. But our awakening must be our own direct recognition, not an imitation of someone else's realization. This is why the Buddha's final teaching to his disciples was, "Be a light unto yourself." The teaching about seeking the seeker, about awareness trying to see itself, points to the fundamental paradox of spiritual practice. What we're looking for is what's doing the looking. The eye cannot see itself. The sword cannot cut itself. Awareness cannot objectify itself. Yet this is precisely what we're trying to do when we seek enlightenment. We're trying to become aware of awareness, to achieve what we already are. This doesn't mean practice is useless. As the master says, practices brought Kaito to the point of readiness to hear this teaching. They're like the path up the mountain, necessary until you arrive. But clinging to practices after they've served their purpose is like carrying a raft on your head after you've crossed the river, as the Buddha taught. The teaching about no separate self, anatta, is perhaps Buddhism's most radical and liberating insight. When we deeply investigate our experience, we find sensations, thoughts, perceptions, and awareness. But we cannot find a solid, permanent entity that is me. What we call the self is a process, a flowing stream of experience, not a thing. This recognition is profoundly freeing. If there's no solid self to defend, protect, or improve, the anxiety of self-maintenance dissolves. We can still function as a person in the relative world, but we're no longer imprisoned by identification with that person as our ultimate identity. Tonight, as you lie here, can you notice the awareness that's present? Not trying to achieve some special state of awareness, but simply recognizing the awareness that's already witnessing these words, these thoughts, these sensations. This awareness has always been here. It was here before this story began. It will be here after the story ends. It's the constant background of all experience. Can you recognize that you don't need to go anywhere or become anyone to be at peace? That peace is available right now in simply being present for this moment. You're not on a path to some distant enlightenment. You're already home. You've always been home. The journey was an illusion created by the belief that you were somewhere else. Rest in that recognition now. There's nowhere to go, nothing to achieve, no one to become. Just this breath, this moment, this awareness, complete and perfect as it is. Our 13th and final story takes us to a monastery during the cold winter months, where a young student was about to learn the most important teaching of all. This is the story of the warm stone. In a monastery high in the northern mountains, winters were harsh and long. The meditation hall was unheated, and students sat through long hours of practice in the cold, developing what their teachers called spiritual discipline and overcoming attachment to comfort. A young monk named Hiro had been at the monastery for 2 years and prided himself on his ability to endure the cold without complaint. While other students shivered and struggled, Hiro sat perfectly still, ignoring the discomfort, believing this demonstrated his spiritual advancement. He looked down on students who wore extra layers or who took breaks to warm themselves by the kitchen fire. One particularly cold winter morning, Hiro arrived early for meditation as usual. He took his place in the hall and began to sit, determined to complete the full 2-hour session without moving, despite the frigid temperature. As other students filed in, he noticed an elderly nun named Master Yumi enter the hall carrying something wrapped in cloth. Master Yumi was the monastery's most senior teacher, someone Hiro deeply respected. He watched as she unwrapped the cloth to reveal a smooth river stone. She sat down on her cushion, placed the stone in her lap, and closed her eyes in meditation. Hiro was puzzled. What was the purpose of the stone? Was it some advanced practice he hadn't learned yet? He tried to focus on his own meditation, but his mind kept returning to the question. After the meditation period ended, students began to leave the hall to break their fast. Hiro approached Master Yumi, who was still sitting peacefully, the stone still in her lap. He bowed respectfully and asked, "Master, forgive my curiosity, but why did you bring a stone to meditation?" Master Yumi opened her eyes and smiled warmly. "Good morning, Hiro. I brought this stone because I warmed it by the kitchen fire before coming here. Now it radiates gentle heat, keeping my body comfortable during meditation. Would you like to feel?" She held out the stone, and Hiro could feel the warmth emanating from it even from a distance. He was shocked. "But Master, isn't enduring the cold part of our practice? Isn't comfort and attachment we should overcome?" Master Yumi laughed, a sound like bells. "Hiro, come sit with me. Let me ask you something. When you sit in meditation fighting against the cold, where is your attention?" Hiro thought carefully. I suppose much of my attention is on resisting the discomfort, on not letting it affect me." "Exactly," Yumi said. "And when your attention is consumed by resisting physical discomfort, how much awareness is available for actually meditating, for investigating the nature of mind, for cultivating compassion and wisdom?" Hiro had never thought of it this way. I suppose less, Master. The Buddha taught the middle way," Yumi continued, avoiding the extremes of both indulgence and harsh asceticism. He himself practiced extreme austerities for 6 years, nearly dying from self-mortification, before realizing this approach was counterproductive. True spiritual practice doesn't require making yourself unnecessarily uncomfortable. She held the warm stone gently in her hands. When the Buddha accepted milk rice from the village girl Sujata after years of starvation, his fellow ascetics thought he had given up, that he had failed in his spiritual quest. But actually, he had discovered something profound, that the body needs to be cared for, not conquered. A weak, suffering body is not a good vehicle for meditation. A mind consumed with resisting discomfort is not free to explore deeper truths. Hiro felt defensive. But Master, don't we need to overcome our attachments to comfort and pleasure? Isn't that the point of renunciation? There's a crucial difference, Yumi explained patiently, between renouncing unnecessary luxuries and practicing self-harm in the name of spirituality. Bringing a warm stone to meditation isn't indulgence, it's wisdom. It allows my body to be comfortable enough that my mind can focus on actual practice rather than on enduring pain. She continued, "Tell me, Hiro, how much of your meditation today was spent in genuine awareness, and how much was spent in simply enduring discomfort while telling yourself this made you a better practitioner?" Hiro hung his head, suddenly seeing the truth. "Most of it was spent enduring, Master. I was fighting the cold, proud of my ability to sit still despite it, but I wasn't really meditating at all." "Exactly," Yumi said with great kindness. "And this is a trap many sincere practitioners fall into. They confuse suffering with practice. They believe that the more uncomfortable they make themselves, the more spiritual they must be. But the Buddha explicitly rejected this approach." She gestured around the cold meditation hall. "Now, I'm not saying we should heat this hall to tropical temperatures or sit on cushions made of clouds. A certain amount of simplicity and even mild discomfort can help us stay alert and practice non-attachment. But there's a difference between helpful simplicity and harmful extremes." Master Yumi stood and invited Hiro to walk with her. They left the meditation hall and walked slowly through the monastery grounds, their breath visible in the cold morning air. "Hiro, let me tell you about the lute string. The Buddha once taught a monk who had been a musician before ordaining." He asked the monk, "When you were playing the lute, did it sound best when the strings were very tight or very loose?" The monk replied, "Neither, Lord. It sounded best when the strings were neither too tight nor too loose, but perfectly tuned." The Buddha said, "It is the same with spiritual practice. If your practice is too loose, too comfortable, too indulgent, you won't develop discipline or insight. But if your practice is too tight, too harsh, too punishing, you'll exhaust yourself, and your mind won't be supple enough for awakening. The middle way is finding the right tension, like a perfectly tuned string." They walked to the monastery garden, now covered in snow. Yumi bent down and gently brushed snow off a small plant that had been struggling through the winter. "Look at this plant," she said. "It's enduring the winter, but we still protect it, cover it at night, ensure it has what it needs to survive. We don't say, 'This plant must suffer to become strong.' We understand that with proper care, it will naturally flourish when spring comes. You are like this plant, Hiro. Yes, you will face difficulties. Yes, the spiritual path requires effort and perseverance. But unnecessarily harsh treatment doesn't make you stronger. It makes you brittle. Compassion toward yourself, wise self-care, creates the conditions in which you can genuinely grow and transform." Hiro felt something cracking open in his heart. "Master, I think I've been practicing a kind of spiritual pride. I've been so focused on being tougher than other students, on enduring more, that I've lost sight of the actual purpose of practice." "Yes," Yumi said gently, "and this is very common. The ego is clever. It will even use spiritual practice to build itself up, to create a sense of superiority. You became proud of your ability to endure cold, and that pride became another form of attachment, another obstacle to genuine practice." She placed her hand on Hiro's shoulder. True spiritual practice includes being kind to yourself. It includes recognizing when your body needs rest, when your mind needs gentleness, when a warm stone might help you meditate better than shivering in misery. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. They returned to the meditation hall, where Master Yumi showed Hiro the basket of river stones she kept near the kitchen. Every morning in winter, I warm several of these. I use one, and I leave the others here for any student who needs them. But do you know something interesting? Very few students take them. They're like you were, believing that suffering makes them better practitioners. She handed Hiro a warm stone. Tonight, when you come for evening meditation, warm a stone. Experience the difference it makes. Notice how much more deeply you can practice when you're not fighting against physical discomfort. And notice if any judgment arises about being weak for using this support. That judgment is ego, not wisdom. Over the following weeks, Hiro began to practice differently. He warmed a stone for meditation on cold mornings. He wore an extra layer when needed. He took breaks when his body was exhausted rather than pushing through to prove his endurance. And something remarkable happened. His meditation deepened. Without the constant distraction of physical discomfort, he could investigate his mind more clearly. He could stay present for longer periods. He began to experience insights that had eluded him when he was focused on enduring rather than understanding. He also noticed something else. As he became kinder to himself, he became more genuinely kind to others. His compassion, which had been somewhat theoretical before, became more natural and spontaneous. When he saw other students struggling, he offered help without judgment. When someone was tired or cold, he suggested they take care of themselves rather than silently judging them as weak. One day, Master Yumi called Hiro to her room. "I've noticed a change in you," she said. "You seem lighter, more present, more genuinely at peace. What have you discovered?" Hiro bowed gratefully. "Master, I've discovered that true spiritual practice isn't about punishing the body or conquering comfort. It's about creating conditions that support awakening. And those conditions include basic self-care, reasonable comfort, and compassion toward oneself." "Yes," Yumi said with a warm smile. "And have you noticed how this extends beyond just physical comfort?" Hiro nodded. "I've started to be gentler with myself in other ways too. When I make mistakes in my practice or in my duties, instead of harsh self-criticism, I try to learn from them with kindness. When difficult emotions arise, instead of trying to forcefully suppress them, I allow them with compassion. It's like the warm stone principle applies to everything." "Exactly so," Yumi said. "The Buddha taught metta, loving kindness, and he taught that it must include oneself. In fact, he said that you could search the entire universe and not find anyone more deserving of love and compassion than yourself. Yet many practitioners are incredibly harsh with themselves, believing this harshness is somehow spiritual." She poured tea for both of them. "True discipline isn't about harshness. It's about showing up consistently with kindness. True renunciation isn't about suffering. It's about letting go of what doesn't serve awakening. And true practice isn't about proving how tough you are. It's about creating the conditions in which your innate wisdom and compassion can naturally emerge." Hiro received his tea with both hands. "Master, why don't we teach this more explicitly to new students? Why do so many of us fall into the trap of harsh self-treatment?" Yumi considered this. Partly because of misunderstanding. People read about the Buddha's years of asceticism and miss the crucial point that he abandoned that approach. They see simple living and interpret it as harsh living. They confuse the middle way with extreme renunciation. But also, she continued, because harshness can feel like progress. When you're making yourself uncomfortable, you feel like you're doing something, achieving something. Gentleness and self-compassion can feel passive or indulgent, especially when you're new to practice. It takes maturity to understand that the wise, sustainable path is the middle way. Years later, Hiro became a teacher himself. When students came to him eager to prove their dedication through extreme practices, he would smile and share the teaching of the warm stone. He would tell them about his own years of mistaking suffering for practice, and how much deeper his practice became when he learned to work with his body and mind compassionately rather than fighting against them. And on cold winter mornings, you could always find a basket of warm stones near the meditation hall. A quiet teaching about the middle way, about wisdom and compassion, about creating conditions that support genuine awakening rather than performing spirituality through unnecessary suffering. The story of the warm stone teaches us about the Buddha's middle way, one of his most fundamental teachings. The middle way isn't a lukewarm compromise between extremes. It's the wise path that avoids the dead ends of both indulgence and harsh asceticism, recognizing that genuine spiritual development requires the right conditions. The Buddha's own journey illustrates this perfectly. As Prince Siddhartha, he lived in luxury, surrounded by every pleasure, but he found that indulgence didn't lead to lasting happiness or understanding. So he left the palace and practiced extreme asceticism, reducing his food to a single grain of rice per day, sleeping on beds of thorns, holding his breath until he fainted. He nearly died from these practices, but enlightenment didn't come through self-torture. It came only after he accepted nourishment, cared for his body, and sat down to meditate with balanced energy. His first teaching after awakening was about this middle way, the path that avoids extremes and creates optimal conditions for awakening. Modern psychology has confirmed what the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. Harsh self-criticism and self-punishment don't lead to positive change. Research shows that self-compassion is far more effective than self-judgment for motivation, resilience, and genuine transformation. When we treat ourselves with kindness, we actually become more capable of change, not less. Yet many spiritual practitioners fall into hero's trap, confusing suffering with progress. They believe that the more uncomfortable they make themselves, the more spiritual they must be. They wear their suffering as a badge of honor, proof of their dedication. But the Buddha explicitly rejected this approach. The teaching about the lute string is one of the Buddha's clearest statements about the middle way. A string that's too tight will break. A string that's too loose won't produce sound. Only when it's tuned just right can beautiful music emerge. Similarly, practice that's too harsh leads to burnout, injury, and bitterness. Practice that's too loose leads to complacency and lack of development. The middle way finds the balance that allows genuine growth. Master Yumi's point about where attention goes during harsh practice is crucial. When we're consumed with enduring discomfort, fighting against our bodies, proving our toughness, very little attention is available for actual meditation, for investigating the nature of mind, for cultivating wisdom and compassion. We're practicing endurance, not awakening. This doesn't mean we should avoid all discomfort. Some discomfort naturally arises in meditation as we sit with restlessness, boredom, difficult emotions, and challenging insights. This kind of discomfort is inherent to the process of transformation and should be met with patient presence. But creating unnecessary physical suffering in the name of spirituality is not the Buddha's teaching. The distinction between renunciation and self-harm is important. Renunciation means letting go of attachments that create suffering, simplifying our lives to focus on what truly matters. It might mean living simply, owning fewer possessions, spending less time on entertainment, but it doesn't mean neglecting basic needs or treating the body as an enemy to be conquered. Master Yumi's teaching that true spiritual practice includes being kind to yourself challenges the harsh inner critic that many of us carry. We might be gentle and compassionate with others while maintaining brutal standards for ourselves. Believing this somehow makes us better practitioners. But the Buddha taught that loving kindness must include oneself. In the Metta Sutta, the Buddha taught, just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so, let one cultivate a boundless love towards all beings, and also towards oneself. This isn't narcissism or self-indulgence. It's recognizing that we are part of all beings and deserve the same compassion we offer to others. The ego's ability to co-opt even spiritual practice is subtle and pervasive. Hiro became proud of his ability to endure cold, turning his practice into another form of ego building. This is what Buddhist psychology calls spiritual materialism, using spiritual practice to enhance our self-image rather than to see through the illusion of self. When Hiro began practicing with more self-compassion, his practice actually deepened. This is the paradox. Being kind to ourselves creates better conditions for transformation than being harsh. When we're not constantly fighting against ourselves, energy becomes available for genuine investigation and insight. The extension of this principle beyond physical comfort is profound. Just as we can bring a warm stone to support physical comfort in meditation, we can bring compassion to support emotional and mental well-being. When difficult emotions arise, we can meet them with kindness rather than harsh suppression. When we make mistakes, we can respond with understanding rather than brutal self-criticism. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, can you practice this teaching of the warm stone? Can you make yourself comfortable rather than forcing yourself into some ideal position? Can you allow your body to be at ease? Can you meet yourself with kindness rather than judgment? If your mind is active, can you respond with gentle patience rather than frustration? If difficult emotions are present, can you allow them with compassion rather than trying to force them away? If you're tired, can you simply rest rather than judging yourself for not falling asleep quickly enough? This isn't indulgence, it's wisdom. You're creating the conditions that support genuine rest and restoration. You're practicing the middle way. The path the Buddha himself discovered leads to freedom. Let your body be comfortable. Let your mind be gentle. Let your heart be kind toward yourself. This is true practice. This is the way of wisdom. Rest now, held in compassion, supported by wisdom, free from the need to prove anything or become anyone. Just rest, exactly as you are. That's enough. That's everything. As we come to the end of our journey together tonight, let us reflect on the wisdom these ancient stories have offered. We've traveled through temples and mountains, gardens and marketplaces, encountering monks and farmers, beggars and merchants, each one teaching us something essential about the path to peace. We learned from Satori that thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky of awareness, and that peace comes not from stopping thoughts but from changing our relationship to them. We discovered with Chen that life unfolds in mysterious ways beyond our judgments of good and bad, and that holding our interpretations lightly brings freedom. Master Tenzin taught us through Kenji about the two arrows, how we cannot always avoid pain, but we can choose not to add suffering through resistance and story-making. Ryokan showed us that what can be taken from us and what cannot be taken are very different things, and that compassion transforms both giver and receiver. The Master's tea ceremony with Yuki revealed that the happiness we seek through striving is only found through presence, through being fully here for the simple miracle of each ordinary moment. Master Hakuin's funeral taught us that nothing of true value can ever be lost, that love and wisdom continue beyond the dissolution of form. Taro learned from washing bowls that practice and daily life are not separate, that the sacred is hidden in the ordinary, and that presence transforms every activity into spiritual practice. Isamu, the grateful farmer, showed us that gratitude is a choice and a practice, one that transforms suffering into peace regardless of circumstances. In Master Hana's garden, Akiko discovered that striving for enlightenment prevents its recognition, and that what we seek is already present when we stop seeking. The heavy stone taught Takeshi that resentments are burdens we choose to carry and can choose to release by simply opening our hands. The beggar's gift revealed that true generosity is measured not by amount but by spirit, and that we all have precious gifts to offer regardless of material wealth. Kaito learned on the sacred mountain that there is no path because we're already home, that seeking creates the illusion of separation from what we seek. And finally, the warm stone showed Hiro that the middle way includes compassion toward ourselves, that creating supportive conditions for practice is wisdom, not weakness, and that kindness to ourselves allows our practice to deepen naturally. These teachings are not separate. They weave together into a complete understanding of the Buddha's path. They all point to the same essential truth, that peace, freedom, and awakening are not distant achievements, but present possibilities, available when we stop fighting reality, when we meet each moment with presence and compassion, when we recognize what we truly are beneath the stories we tell ourselves. The Buddha's final words to his disciples were, "All conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence." He was reminding them that everything changes, that nothing in form lasts forever, but that the path of awakening continues, moment by moment, breath by breath. Tonight, you don't need to remember all these stories or hold on to all these teachings. They have already done their work, planting seeds in your consciousness that will grow in their own time. What matters now is simply this: you are here, you are breathing, you are aware, and you are held in the vast embrace of existence itself. Let go of everything now. Let go of trying to understand. Let go of trying to remember. Let go of trying to be anywhere other than here. Let go of trying to be anyone other than who you are. Your breath continues without effort. Your heart beats without thought. Life lives itself through you. You don't have to make any of this happen. You can simply rest in the great happening, the eternal now, that was here before you were born and will be here after this body returns to earth. Feel your body sinking deeper into the bed. Feel gravity gently pulling you down, supporting you completely. There's nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go, no one you need to become. The teachings we've shared tonight are now part of you, woven into your understanding, available when needed. But for now, they can rest too. Everything can rest. Your mind can rest. Your body can rest. Your heart can rest. You are safe. You are held. You are exactly where you need to be. As you drift now towards sleep, know that you carry with you the wisdom of countless beings who have walked this path before you. Their peace is your peace. Their understanding is available to you. You are not alone on this journey. You are supported by an endless lineage of awakened hearts. May you rest deeply. May you sleep peacefully. May you wake refreshed and renewed. May all beings everywhere find the same peace you're discovering now. The Buddha taught, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. You have found it, here in this moment, in this breath, in this gentle surrender to sleep. Rest now, dear friend. Rest completely. The journey continues tomorrow, but for now, simply rest in the peace that was always here, waiting for you to notice. Sleep well.